Mayor and Council Workshop, May 14th, 2015.
No need for me to call the county.
Call the meeting to order.
I can't remember what the late ones volunteer of the year was.
You want to be volunteer of the year?
Late ones.
I'll do a proclamation tonight, James.
All right.
I don't even need the rest of the council.
No, I want to do the late one.
You want the late one?
Yeah. Gary got it, I can vote him.
Well, now that the bitch session is over,
Oh, God.
move forward with
All right.
the meeting.
I haven't even
I'll ask
spoken yet.
that the clerk please
all
read
good.
the
It's all good.
sunshine notice.
This meeting is held pursuant to New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act. Adequate notice
Yes, how
of
are
this
you?
meeting was advertised on January 11, 2015, issued with the Trends. News provided to the Star Ledger, Daily Record, North Jersey Herald News on January 11, 2015. Adequate notice of this meeting was also posted on municipal bulletin board, filed with the Acton Borough Clerk, and provided to the persons or entities requesting notification.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Frida?
Here.
Councilman O'Barry?
Here.
Councilman Barrett?
Here.
Councilman Cordell is here, stepped out for a minute. Councilwoman Senti? Here. Councilman Giantonio?
Here. Thank you.
Here.
Basin Lake's water. They found a leak on Lakeview Drive in my street.
Yes, I know they did.
Well, they're telling me because I live there, they're gonna shut
Whereabouts?
the water off tomorrow.
That's my street too. Whereabouts?
Somewhere where they got to shut the water off from my house. I don't know about
Oh,
yours.
really?
They'll
Hopefully,
call your home if they have to shut your water
well,
off.
hopefully it's closer to you all day.
Thank you. I appreciate your,
Just septic.
your compassion is,
Your empathy.
your compassion is
They
noted.
finally fixed the one yesterday on the
Hey,
18
look out for
bridge.
number one.
On
you?
the 18 bridge, yeah.
Well, we've had a bitch session. I'm not feeling the love tonight, but we'll see if we can move this forward. First and foremost, I just want to remind you that the parade is upcoming. Dan, I believe that Mayor Dunleavy had spoken to you, and I actually got an email from Jane McCarthy, the clerk, who indicated that the mayor is suggesting that ultimately we try not to do 3 separate ceremonies. Although individual towns may in fact have the laying of a wreath by themselves, not the similar production that we've been involved with. And I think the concern is that the turnout is never what we hope for, and I think the mayor is concerned that he's going to experience what we've experienced in prior years, where people really don't come up from Butler or Bloomingdale to our ceremony. So I think that the recommendation is that we move forward with basically holding one ceremony, and then the town's ultimately able to do whatever they choose to do, but not on the same level we've done in the past. So I don't know if you have a comment or
I
question.
do have a comment on that. We had a VFW meeting last night. I did present that to the veterans. And they said, well, we always do a ceremony at every monument. So I says, well, what do you feel? Do we want to keep doing this or not? And there was neither positive or negative remarks from anybody. So I feel that probably we can move forward with what Mayor Dunleavy and Jim Lampman has also suggested, but he's not the mayor of Butler.
Right.
That they suggested that we just do the one service every year instead of, because we do 4 services, and Riverdale does their own also. So it's really independent. They were independent of the Triborough, so they do their own, and then we do them. We do 4 of them. We do Butler, Bloomingdale, Kinnelon, and then we do the VFW. Right. So we actually the color guard does 4 services. So it's a little difficult, and the guys, the color guard's getting older. We're not getting that many Iraqi and Afghanistan veterans or Desert Storm guys coming in.
Maybe we can publicize the VFW event a little bit more, because I know that sometimes people know it, but not necessarily as maybe as.
We do that at noon every year.
Right.
And we welcome anybody in the community who wants to come down for hamburgers and hot dogs. Right. There are generous people in our community that donate the food. Right. And donate their time and come and cook it for the veterans. Right. Last year we had a lot of Marines and current military people that are actually in the service that came to the event last year. Right. So that was nice, even though we're diminishing the numbers of residents that do come.
Well, I think that the mayor, and Steve had a comment, but I think the mayor is looking for some buy-in from the veterans. He wants to make sure that the veterans are not feeling disrespected by maybe,
I don't believe they'd be disrespected, but I'm not saying then that the veterans couldn't You know, the veterans themselves, the organizations, the American Legion and VFW couldn't go down, and we do our own little ceremony around those sites as memorials and just lay the wreaths as we normally do.
Right.
And this way for Memorial Day, we're at least putting the wreaths down. Where it gets a little bit tedious and a little bit drawn out is when you have all the political dignitaries making long speeches, and that's why when the guys are getting older, 90-degree heat and ready to fall over, you know.
You looking at me, Dan?
No, I'm not looking at you.
I'm teasing.
You
I'm
know
teasing.
what I'm talking.
I'm just teasing. Okay.
Not
Just,
you at
just
all.
I want to bring it to your, make sure that the
Yes.
town's governing body.
Is he suggesting then that they have a bigger ceremony when get all together, like all the mayors or someone from each town speak at this one larger, or is it? I'm just curious. They can do whatever.
Mayor Dunleavy spoke to me about it, and he didn't suggest any of that.
Okay.
You know, he just said, you know, why don't we do it just at the hosting town every year? And it was also emphasized by Jim Lamb. But they said they had suggested. I said, well, I'll run it by the veterans.
Yeah.
You know, but I said we already passed the American Legion meeting this month, so that was last week.
Okay.
So I ran it by the VFW list.
Well, once again, just so the veterans know that we're, want to be respectful and acknowledge their service. And
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Well, I just wanted to bring that to the table tonight. A couple other informational items. We were named the 58th safest community above 10,000 in the entire country, which is pretty remarkable. There's a town in Bergenfield that was a little higher. I don't know how that happened, but Bergenfield, I think, was in the top 28 or something. So,
It's Paris.
you know,
I gotta tell you, it really is
it's there.
Paris.
So, it was 10 communities of 10,000 population or greater. So I know there were some communities in Morris County that were just below, but I think we're 10,268 or 10,300 right in that range. So, but I think that it's
cool.
that type of acknowledgement. I think that speaks pretty well about what the town and policing's about. So that's a credit to everybody. Adam, myself, Carol, and Karen attended a Oprah meeting down in South Jersey, and I think that it's onerous, but what I was able to glean out of the conversation was that the law is evolving, but maybe not as quickly as technology. There was a case that ultimately went without a decision on whether or not text messaging is subject to Oprah, which I thought was interesting because it appears that that really is one of the main communication tools for a lot of people today. The normal cautions, and they have a website we can go out to and take a look at, but the normal cautions about, once again, using private servers, and one of the presenters actually, I told him, I said, you've got to get a life. I said, his knowledge of case law was just incredible, and he would say, as he was talking, he goes, this case on this day involving, O'Brien versus, the town of Dumont, the settlement or the judgment was this, but he went back through probably 8 years of case law, basically talking about ultimately how some decisions have been made.
Interesting conversation.
But
It was,
just
yeah, it was
amazing.
all in here.
But once again, just to be cautionary about it, we are in fact a public body, and anything we do, communication-wise, ultimately, you should, I think, err on the side of caution. So just want to make sure that you're aware of that, the fact that it's out there, and they do find people, and there are mechanisms for basically filing complaints. They actually have quite an extensive memorial park. They had a Huey, an H-1 Huey copter, and they had a F-88 fighter and an M1 tank as part of this park. So I guess it's because it's a proximity to the Dix and McGuire, we were able to pick up some surplus hardware, but it's a really nice park. It was at the Burlington Municipal Complex. So nice job on that. So it dovetails into our star. Adam and I had the chance to go up to Picatinny. Adam has a picture somewhere floating around in the Star Ledger archives. He was able to fire off a howitzer with a blank, which was exceedingly noisy. But
You got to be a fire control officer.
I did, but I didn't get my picture in the paper. So, but Picatinny is, I think, a big part of our community. I think there's a lot of people that actually work up in Picatinny, and they do some remarkable work. And I think that it's interesting when we're looking at weapons. They're really talking about providing tools for our soldiers to be as well prepared as they can. And the one thing I gleaned out of that conversation was that you'll appreciate this. Apparently, they're going for green technology regarding weaponry. So they don't want bullets that ultimately
Leave lead or mercury.
that can't leave lead out there. So I don't
That's
understand.
why they can't sell any of their Green Acre land. It's not green.
Right. Environmentally friendly.
But
extrusion
environmentally
of
friendly.
C4.
And
It's
Adam and I
glowing
were-
green.
And Adam and I were talking to a couple of the civilians that were, and I'm like, why don't you blow it up? What do you care? But apparently there's a real effort underway, seriously, to say, listen, you know, this stuff could be harmful, and but really impressed, and I think that the Brigadier General could not have been more welcoming. We talked to a couple of colonels and the general officer staff. I did walk over to Marine. I knew he was a Marine, and I said, "How's the Army treating you?" He said, "I'm not in the Army, sir." And I said, I kind of figured that out. So I don't know what Army stands for, but it means something complimentary, Dan. So, but he was a young kid, and you know, but once again, not to go long about it. They really are doing some incredible work, and I know that a number of people do work in Picatinny. Last item that I wanted to cover was budget. Had an opportunity to talk to Lou May over the last couple of days, because our sale of sewer capacity with Riverdale, in fact, has been signed off by Riverdale. Riverdale's council approved it. Bloomingdale's council has approved it, and we actually have the signed agreement from both our governing body and theirs as well. There is some paperwork that needs to be done by the sewer commission. But for all practical purposes, the way I understand it, talking to Mayor Dunleavy, it tends to be more administrative, and that doesn't seem to represent any additional hurdles that will prevent us from moving forward. So we have a signed agreement. We're going to recognize $1,046,500. So in talking to Lou May, after our conversation last month, the question came up, you know, in fact, if our surplus replenished at this year, what's our needs going to be in years 2, 3, 4, and 5, and do we have the opportunity ultimately to potentially, you know, have a freeze on the tax, the amount of taxes need to be raised this year. So Lou put paper to pencil to paper, and he identified net, going back and forth, $100,000 that ultimately would be necessary to keep the municipal taxes flat. He indicated another $26,000 from the surplus for the library increase, but for less than 10% of what we're recognizing through the sale of the excess sewer capacity, we have an opportunity, I think, to keep taxes basically flat. And I know Adam was in the building this morning. He took a couple minutes to join me, and I think it's an opportunity. I think, once again, it was an off-balance sheet item that you know, really belongs to the taxpayers. So I'm advocating that ultimately, given the fact that we'll still have in reserve $900,000 net of the 126 that ultimately could be used in subsequent years to keep surplus healthy. We talked about breakage, the fact that we had initially anticipated 3 months for CFO. We're now at 6 months. We talked about the fact that in the bond refi, we're actually picking up close to $100,000 related to that. The offsets are that
A few
you know,
bills, just a few bills that weren't recognized earlier
Right.
were found. So
Were found,
we got
yeah.
About $18,000.
well, we also have $75,000 that was transferred out of reserve for retirement's not the right word.
Accumulated absence.
Compensated
Yeah.
absences.
Yeah, that ultimately we're gonna have to fund in this year, if not next year. But like I said, I think that this is a year that, we've got an opportunity once again to keep taxes flat, and I wanted to bring it to the table today. Lou, not in my direction, did reach out to the DCA to see if they looked at the budget. I don't know if he's got an answer.
They have not.
Okay.
They may do it on Monday. So we may or we may not be able to introduce on Thursday, depending upon whether they get back and look at it and have no problems. But if we make significant changes to the budget, and I think anything beyond those bills that we spoke about, and perhaps offsetting some of the debt service to negate that effect, if we do anything too much more than that, we may have to hold off and have a special meeting, and it may delay it for 2 weeks, because it'd be the 28-day rule. We'd have to look at exactly, if we do anything more than a small change, we just may not be able to introduce for a couple of weeks in addition. Might as well do my report. You just did most of it.
Well, I'm trying to help it along, so.
If you want to.
Go ahead.
We found, and we have a couple of decisions to make. If we have to add about $3,136 to the budget because we got an additional bill on the police pension because the retro pay that they got becomes pensionable. So, and we didn't know about that when we did the budget, so we have to increase that budget line. Knowing that, there was also retro pay for DPW, so I think we can anticipate, although we haven't gotten a bill yet, their pension may go up about $3,000. So I think we should be prudent, and we may never get the bill, but I think we should be prudent and provide for that. We got a website bill that was not in the budget because the, what do you call it, the
12 grand you're talking about for Evo?
yeah, the resolution never got to the business office timely for whatever reason, so that was not included, so I think we have to provide for that if you want to do it.
It's too late.
It's too late?
We're doing it.
Well,
Yeah,
we're
it's
doing it.
done.
So then I guess we, yes, right, because I think we got a bill
Also,
for
Steve,
$3,000.
I got another bill here for $4,700 for the library for
For
a
last
new
year?
compressor from this
So
year,
that's
which is gonna
50.
go into the building and grounds, and might leave us short at the
Okay.
end of the year.
All right.
We
well
only
then-
have 18,000, I think, in the budget for buildings
Right.
and grounds, so that may
Okay.
leave
Well,
us short
as
by the
these
end of
things
the year.
that weren't known become known, the offset to that is, as Bob mentioned, our effective interest rate came in lower than we provided for. So this year that will be provide about $100,000 that we could reduce debt service. I don't know if we want to reduce that whole amount, but if we don't, it just rolls into surplus, and that's what, it's going to go there, whether, one way or another, it's going to end up in surplus. So we have a choice on that 100,000 to either reduce the debt service by that entire amount, or we could just offset these additional needs and keep it flat. And it was also, we could look at the CFO pay. We figured he'd be coming in for about 8.5, 9 months. He's probably, if we're lucky, we'll get somebody with 6 or 7 months, so that there's breakage there, as was mentioned. There are a couple other things we could do to reduce the tax, the increase in taxes, and as Bob mentioned, we could use some of that surplus. I would only like to consider, please consider the fact that our next year is going to be the year of the reval, and I think there's going to be a lot of unhappy people, or as they say, a third of the people will be unhappy, a third will be real happy, and a third will say, ah. But I think next year would be a good year to ensure that we have a flat tax compared to this year, because then people will know that any change in their tax from the, and we can't talk about the school or the county, but anything coming from our end would be totally due to the reval and not a tax increase, and I think that may eliminate some confusion. And if we have the surplus to do it, I'd like to make sure that we leave enough in there so we have a flat tax for next year. Great this year too, but I'd like to make sure that we can do that for next year. So we can talk about those individual items, or just...
Is that open for discussion?
Yeah, let's put it on the
That's
table.
why we're here, man.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But, along with your thinking, maybe what we could do is if we spend the 100, 150, whatever you call the number this year, can we make a plan to spend, say, $300,000 a year for the next 3 years? So we know that we kind of have that buffer built in, and we can
Well,
use it.
I think we should always, aim to increase our surplus. You know, it got very low years ago, and we've got it back
Yeah, I
up
think he said it was
towards
as
the
low as
decent.
75 grand.
Yeah. The other thing next year is, don't forget, if you look at our new bond document, our debt service next year is more than this year. It's up about $300,000. So
So
we
that
have,
would negate that.
yeah,
if you
so
did
we,
that.
we have to be prepared for that. In the year you do the financing, I believe you don't have a principal payment, so, you feel real good about your new debt service, and the lower rate was great. It came out an average over the debt bond was 2.54, and I think we used 3 and change to do the projections. So with those things in mind, we could negate any increases and keep the rate of what we've already put out there, make the changes that we have to, but offset them with additional sources of revenue. We could reduce the taxes, reduce the increase from that down to a flat rate, but I'm just
But
wanna.
you just said $900,000, Steve, that ultimately,
Yeah.
net, if we're raising $1 million, or we're recognizing $1,046,000, and this is actually taxpayers' money is actually basically coming back into surplus.
Absolutely, but I think it's also prudent to keep.
Oh, yeah, I'm not suggesting that we cut
Right.
taxes, because the other thing that Lou talked about, he goes.
Drunken
he goes-
sailor money
Yeah,
or
well,
something.
that's,
We don't
well,
want. We don't.
Lou
we don't
actually
want-
said,
we don't want
down this
to
year.
Lou actually said, if you
Next
wanted to reduce this year, and I said, yeah, well, that's fine, but you reduce to a level, and then all of a sudden you gotta pump it next year.
Yeah.
That makes no sense at all, but
Right.
the one area that you didn't touch upon, if I could supplement, is
Sure.
that water and sewer has been problematic over the last couple cycles, and I think that
We
in
could
talking
we
with.
could use
Decade.
those collections.
Right, but in talking with the auditor, I wanted to touch upon whether or not there would be an ongoing concern, and his assessment was that because we're going to be billing the school, and ultimately because of rate changes, he felt that it's actually going to be operating basically at a break-even point, so he didn't see the
You say
need.
sewer or water?
Sewer.
Okay, sewer, yeah.
Right, so he didn't see a need really to, take in this money and, basically dedicate it or allocate it for that particular utility, because that's a separate budget within our budget,
Mhm.
so, I didn't want to, once again, come to the table without at least talking about that.
Right.
He thought that if we recognized another $23,000 from an outstanding, sewer bill out on Route 23, we ultimately could offset the numbers.
Because
we
we've
just talked
collected it
about.
already,
Yeah.
from the old, that uncollected money that goes back a decade that we finally collected. Yeah, you just have to be, we can pick that up because we've collected it, but it's kind of a one-time thing. I don't think we're gonna find any other old uncollected sewer bills that we're gonna have to go out and collect. So, yeah, we can increase our revenue this year, but we're gonna have to bring it back down next year, because what we collected on the auto mall is a one-shot thing. So I would caution,
Just since the website didn't make it, the 75 grand for the computers make it over to?
that's in the capital.
It is, that's what I thought, okay.
Yeah, that was in there, we discussed that, but
Right.
this was because the resolution didn't get to Jennifer's desk at times, so she didn't know to put it
Makes sense.
in the budget, but I think she has it now and all's well.
And the budget's tight, and I think Lou basically summarized it pretty well. He said, you've always had tight budgets. And what I said to him, the issue is that the other towns, some other towns, basically had some flexibility in their budgets because they may have had a police department or a staff that really was a little bit more richly staffed than we have. I mean, we've always operated really lean here.
Mhm.
We've never gotten the credit, and that's the problem with the 2% cap, because we're painted with the same brush as all the other towns.
Right.
But
Yeah.
2%
We
cap
were
is-
notified, it's in my report too, that not this year, but probably going to next year, we have one of our senior police officers that is probably
Or some-
retiring.
Right, so we put a fairly significant amount, we upped that from, I think, 50 to 100 this
Right,
year for
which was
compensated absences.
We were right on
But we're gonna have to be prepared that that's gonna be gone next year and come up with another 100. So there are some challenges next year, and it's comforting to know we may have even if we flatten out the taxes, we still have $900,000, but that's not gonna go on forever, you know? You tell your kids don't spend it all. Let's,
Jim,
when
you always
get a
have a
windfall.
profound statement,
So I don't know, if,
It's
how do you wanna handle this? I mean, there's certain things that we have to do.
I like your idea of flat next year. I mean,
Yeah.
And this year, what are we talking, $70 increase?
Well, we're
$80
talking, before we made any changes, what we presented last week, I think it was about $6 on an average assessed home, which is about $439,000, $6 a month, which, it's not nothing, but it's, you know.
I wrestle with one fact. I don't see how we ultimately take an off-balance sheet item, sell it recognized over $1 million, and then don't provide tax relief this year. And I'm not saying cut the budget, but I think that to put forth
That's right.
an increase when you're only talking about $125,000, $126,000 out of that sale this year, you still have a buffer of $900,000 to address years 2, 3. I think
Well,
Can you get a heads up too
I-
that the county's gonna come
I'm
in?
a fan of no
even?
tax.
the county's going to come in flat. This is the
So
third year.
I would want to mirror.
Yeah,
the
I have
county.
no problem in shooting for for no increase this year, but I just would like to make everybody, when you're making the consideration, debt service is gonna be higher next year. We're gonna probably wipe out most of our compensated absences provision. You know, we're not gonna have another one-shot sale of this $1 million. I mean, when you have a one-shot windfall like this, yes, it is the taxpayers' money, but I think a lot of taxpayers would also like to see us use it as prudently as possible, and
Off the
rainy
top-
day,
off
a
the
good
top-
portion of it.
Off the top of your head, do you know
Mhm.
surplus to surplus consideration? Because we did quite well with regenerating surplus last year.
We
So,
did more.
We did more?
Yes.
Right. So I
This
guess
year.
my question is, do you think that's going to be on the same par with next year? And I'm asking you to have a crystal ball here,
Yeah.
but, you know.
I think if tax collections are stay where they are, then the reserve that we put in for uncollected taxes, most of that will come back into surplus.
Right.
We will not have the $300,000 that we had in 2012 encumbered but unexpended that rolled into 14. We won't have 14 as much in 14 rolling into 16 because it's gone. We know it's gone. You know, we don't have as much in encumbered but unexpended. So, you know, yeah, we'll generate a reasonable amount of surplus going forward unless people don't pay their taxes. You know.
But not a dramatic
But
decrease.
not a dramatic decrease in budget. So the 900, I keep wrestling with the fact that it's a one-time event, and we get hit with an unforeseen one-time event. You know, it's a bit of a comfort to know something there. Am I saying don't use 100 to flatten out the taxes if that's what we decide to? Absolutely not. But we're going to need some of it next year if we want to keep taxes flat in the year of the revaluation. We're going to need more than 100,000 of it. I'm pretty certain.
The auditors need some direction, and that's why I wanted to bring it to the table tonight
Right.
with Steve. So, any other comments or questions about recommendation to basically have no increase? So we're going to basically have the dollars raised this year at the same level as what we
This
raised
is the
last
prior
year.
year. What, I think I would ask him to do that and see where we are and how much of that we have to use. I mean, we have some breakage in certain areas. We have the debt service come in great, so maybe we'll see how much of that surplus we'll have to use, and then of the one-time surplus, and see where we are. If everybody's comfortable with that number going forward, and I'll get a more accurate number on what we think we're going to need to accomplish the same thing next year, and we'll let everybody know before next week what those numbers are, and we can discuss it.
I want to do
next
straw
week.
polls tonight based upon what, you know, Steve's numbers match mine, which is a good thing.
Always
But I'd
nice.
like to, you know, at least be able to give Lou some
Yeah,
direction here.
right.
So this is a non-binding straw poll, so I'm just going to ask for a show of hands. How many members of the council are supportive of no tax increase, raising the same tax amount this year as we raised last year? Just a show of hands.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
so
we'll
that'll
go over
be
the
the
numbers,
direction, so-
assuming it doesn't put too much of a
Right.
hole
Right.
and jeopardize our plan for next year. Because
Absolutely.
Right.
does everyone agree that in a year of a revaluation, it'd be valuable to also have a flat tax?
Well, you know, and I agree with you. But
Okay.
the way I look at it is that we're doing the reval irrespective of who we got this money in.
Absolutely,
So-
but I
so
think
this
it's
really,
I
this
think it's a
really-
service to the taxpayers, though.
Right, but this really allows us to have a cushion, provide tax relief for them this year, at least keeping it flat, so we accomplish maybe two goals.
Could we
Yep.
explain that to the residents when we have those meetings with the revaluation people?
Yeah, oh, sure.
I don't see why we couldn't.
I think that's part of the education that we've talked about, and people are going to be, as Steve said, people are going to not necessarily be happy if in fact their assessed rate goes up. They're going to be very happy if their assessed rate goes down.
Right.
But not necessarily the other way around.
Right.
And So the people in the middle, of course.
Right.
The other thing-
You'll understand it so well at those meetings, Cliff. I think you'll have a great time explaining it to the residents.
The other thing
That's why I
that,
want to know, I'm going to go to the meeting to hear it.
the other thing that I wanted to at least bring to your attention was that there is a resolution floating around from town to town in support of having separate tax bills issued for school, library, and municipality
To really
and
confuse
county.
things.
So, well, I
The
think that the
tax-
idea is, what
tax
it does is
transparency act.
all it does is it highlights, where in fact people's property taxes go, which is, okay, the bigger issue, I think, and we've talked about this repeatedly, is that when in fact somebody succeeds at a tax appeal, that tax reduction is 100% on the municipality. It doesn't pass through to either the county or to the school,
But
so.
that act corrects that.
Right,
But that act has no
no
chance of
legs,
passing.
right, has no legs.
It's sponsored by Bob Roth out of Bergen County, I know. It's called the Tax Transparency Act, if you want to Google it. One component is separate bills that clearly show what you can give the county, what you give the municipality.
Physically separate pieces of
You
paper.
can elect for
or
separate, or you can elect to include the same information on
On
one.
one bill.
The second component, I'm sorry to interrupt you, is actually says that refunds shall come in their respective portions from the county and from the Board of Ed. It's a lovely written act.
Right, but the resolutions that are floating around are, as Steve said, multiple pieces of paper going out to people saying this is what your tax liabilities for the various entities. And the other resolution I did see was exactly that,
In
so it's
support of
in
that.
support of the,
So you think a portion of that might go
share.
through? Because certainly, they make, to include a pie chart or something, I know we have it at our
It's not
tax
going
office.
anywhere, I don't think, but
In our tax bills, a couple of years ago, we decided really to put percentages. So that's where you'll see that, the municipal piece is about 18%, the school runs right around 70%, and then the balance between the library and the county.
And the library's statutory, there's nothing they can do about that.
that's in the municipal entity.
Right.
And I should mention that within the tax consideration we just talked about is the $26,000 for the library, so there wouldn't be any increase there as well, so.
Yeah, we could
Provide
offset the
that.
26, you're saying, that the additional we have to pay them, we can offset.
Because otherwise it would just be 100 for the borough. Okay, that is the end of my report, so just moving on with the agenda here. We are going to,
Property?
what's that?
Did you see that letter about trustee for the property on?
Oh, Mark
Yeah,
cleared it up
You can
for us
explain
earlier.
that.
Oh, okay, I thought,
It's closed?
No, that's not really
Is it
closed. I
negotiation?
can explain it if you'd like, but I mean, it's up to you guys.
Why don't you say that for your report?
Okay. No, I'm just asking if it was closed, because maybe it's a negotiation
It's
thing.
just
I
a
don't
quick
know.
explanation.
Okay.
I do have a property acquisition discussion that we will undertake and close. Proclamation for Harry Hicks. Harry is hopefully going to be in attendance, and I know that he's had a long relationship, and how to describe him with the borough. I mean, Harry's Harry, and so
50-plus years
so
old.
he will be hopefully attending next Thursday night's meeting. I know that the freeholders, the state assembly office wants to present him with a proclamation, and I know that Congressman Frelinghuysen also is doing something, but he's down in Washington on some votes next week. If you don't know, Cliff, Harry is Harry. Harry typically invites the Queen of England to the pancake breakfast every year. He's invited the president, and usually they respond in kind, saying that unfortunately they're not able to attend. Queen of England. So,
No, not the
I
Pope?
take some
not the Pope. I think maybe the Pope too. But I was waiting for the day that the Queen would come into the pancake breakfast with the crown on.
Maple syrup on
But I think Harry enjoyed getting the response from the.
for that day too.
Yeah.
Still there.
But I think Harry loved getting the correspondence from the Queen saying that he's not able to come. But like I said, the public servant, I think we should, and well-deserving of recognition. Police accreditation, I know that we have accreditation board coming out to do a presentation to our chief on next Thursday as well. That's an incredible accomplishment. It actually helps out our insurance premium as well.
What does
But I
that
think
mean, Mayor?
Accreditation basically is a review of your operating procedures and policies, and they dig down so deep that ultimately there is a separate entity that goes out and basically inspects police departments and other entities. I know that for my company, we're CARF accredited, which is a separate accreditation board. But what it does is it really says that your procedures are where they need to be, your policies are where they need to be, and once again, it's not easy to get this. It's a lot of work. I know that Chief Finkel had started this because about a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit longer. But this just is a validation of the fact we've got a great police department, followed by the fact that we have officers that are willing to risk their own safety and pull people out of vehicles. That story went national, and if Kinnelon wasn't on the map before, we are now. But interestingly, it occurred at the time that Baltimore was burning, or just around the same time. So the contrast between officers that are pulling people from fire versus people starting fires, and at the 200 Club where Doug Shortway was acknowledged. One chief got up and he said, "It's amazing to me that 14 years ago, September 11th, we had people walking up and hugging us as police officers, and today people are throwing rocks at us and shooting at us." So, to our credit and to the credit of the community, I think that we're fortunate to have, a very fine department, and I think it just dovetails into the entire staff here. Morris County Board of Chosen Freeholders will be presenting their budget. It is freeholder Cabana and freeholder Master Angelo that will be here. Their budget is 0 increase this year as well. So that would be nice to be able to complement that. That's the end of my report, and so we're over to Mark.
Mayor, I have just one or two quick notes for open, and then, of course, we have a few things to discuss and close. Just to dovetail a little bit off what you said, the website for OPRA is actually called the GRC website, Government Records Council. It's unbelievably comprehensive and searchable by subject matter. So if you do have a question, you're welcome to call me, but it's a great website. It has Attorney General's opinions on there, every exception, plus. I'm waiting for a report on the Weber tract, the dam, and the villas. I've reached out to the attorney that I dialogue with. I just haven't gotten a response yet, but I know Carol will be asking me very soon, so you can report back to your group.
And just on your report, just so you're aware, once again, the dam has been breached, okay? So you can't call it, I wouldn't call it a dam right now.
Don't call it a dam?
I would call it.
This is a big cement thing that leaks?
No, it's got a big hole in it. It's got a
Okay.
big loop, but it's got riprap basically put it there. So it's been breached. I wouldn't call it a dam. I would call it a breached.
I will come up with something.
Rubble, okay?
I will get my thesaurus out and come up with something.
But
Structure formerly known as a dam.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
That worked.
All right. We were, again, we passed off some analysis that was necessary on Kinnelon Heights, and I know somebody here is doing that and crunching some numbers. I just didn't want to lose track of it before I closed the file. Also did not want to lose track of the garbage bids, which, again, our work is done on. I want everybody clear it's done at the request of the council, of course, and the mayor. It was done early. We're waiting for the insert pages from the borough. I just don't want that to slip out and us to be close in time. We have all summer, but we all know summer goes too fast. Very quickly, we received a notice from someone making an application at the zoning board. Their application was for an expansion of their home. They seem to have used a form that is required not to expand your home, but is required when you have what's called an isolated undersized lot. So I don't think what they're doing is the correct form even at the zoning board, but that's not up to me or any of you. The form essentially says if you have an isolated undersized lot, that you have, before you can get a variance to build a house, you have to ask your neighbor to the right, to the left, to the rear, do you have any extra property you want to sell me? Mm-hmm. That way I could create a conforming lot and therefore wouldn't need this variance. This person is not an isolated undersized lot case, is just simply doing an addition. they seem to have used that same form, which is probably, it's in Bill Cox's book, and they may have just taken it out of the application package or something. But the net of that is the borough owns the adjoining property. So she's saying to us, do you have any property you'd like to sell me? Now, number one, I think she'd be shocked if we said yes. Number two, we can't say yes. If we had property, it has to be publicly bid, obviously. Number three, it doesn't sound like she's looking for an entire, we have a beautiful 100 by 100, full-size, perfectly square lot. She doesn't, I don't get the impression she's looking for an extra lot. She's looking for an extra few feet in connection with her zoning application. So I don't think we could sell it. If we could sell it, it would have to be publicly bid. It's not necessary really for her application. And in fact, if we did sell it, the price point would be way above the excess land she needs for her addition. It would be the price of a buildable lot in Lake Raleigh, which I assume is significant. So I suggest we either ignore or politely decline. All she has to do is, assuming she was right about the form, which again I don't think she is, just simply demonstrate to the board that she asked her neighbors, and one of her neighbors happens to be the borough. She sent the same letter to the neighbor on the other side, I'm sure.
I'd like to write a letter back to her acknowledging her request and saying unfortunately there's no interest at this time.
Would there be any thought about putting this up for public bid then? Because I mean, it looks like I mean, it could be all rock and a worthless lot, but I mean, it's not doing the borough anything. Get it back on the tax roll.
Unless you have, that's always the governing body's discretion
Right.
about selling borough property. You sell it in accordance with what's called the local lands and buildings law.
Okay.
If it were an undersized lot, you would offer it to adjoining properties first. And a lot of times put a restriction on it saying it's not buildable, it's just excess land because it's undersized. In this case, it looks like a full-size 100 by 100 lot that seems to be the same as everything around it.
Right, unless it's a big rock.
Unless, of course, it's just one big rock.
We do have them like that in town.
So that's entirely in the discretion of the
I'm
governing
gonna go
body.
take a look at that lot.
I know it's on the side of a hill.
It is.
It may be
right?
all
I
critical
don't know if
slope.
there's
It's actually
a house
2
at the
doors down
bottom or
from
not.
Gary, I think.
Oh, that's off Gary Street?
Yeah.
All right, so if people are interested in it, you know, if you'd like to sell it, you certainly can, and
So you're checking it
It's
out?
probably all critical stuff. I'll take a ride.
and that's exempt because it's ours.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
That's the borough lot.
That's what they're looking
You gotta
to.
come down this street.
Yeah, they're next door. They want a
They're
piece.
over here.
Right, I'll find out, take a look at it.
Okay, that concludes anything I wanted to touch on.
I just had one question for you, Mark. I'd asked Karen to reach out to you regarding paper trailer. The First Reformed Church is working with the Boy Scouts and has offered their parking lot for a paper trailer. I think we have an ordinance against trailers, and I'm using that term loosely. I'm not really
Is this
sure
for
about
the shredding
that.
event?
No, this is for
Yeah.
collection, newspaper collection,
Oh,
because
paper
they use
trailer, okay.
the paper for
Newspaper.
sale in newspaper
Okay.
for basically funding.
Is this going to be there
something.
forever, or is this a
No,
temporary?
this is just until, because they can't use the art over here.
I would certainly think the governing body could.
Well, if there's an ordinance in place, okay, that prohibits it, and they put it on property, because the other question that I asked John Whitehead, I said, John, listen, what concerns do we have as a town? He said, well, if they put a tractor trailer there, there's steps, there could be liability, and I said, but if that's between the Scouts and the church,
Right.
that's the, you know, that basically is on their plate.
Right.
And I said to Terry Stagg, I said, maybe you want to consider, you know, hopefully reaching out to maybe the pod people and see if they'll drop a couple pods, and that may be a better way. But, you know, I don't know if there's a legal objection to
None
the
from
church.
me. I mean, I think you're always allowed to waive your own ordinances sparingly in the event of an emergency. We have a strange situation at the DPW on a very temporary basis. This comes up all the time where people, you have a sign ordinance that says no banners, and the Friends of the Library want to put up a banner. Well, what do? Tell the Friends of the Library no? We make a reasonable decision that.
Well, do we have to take any action to waive the ordinance or just remain silent?
just
I
would-
don't, I wrote the property maintenance ordinance. We don't have a restriction on trailers for a reason, if you recall.
Right.
Back years ago, and we did not put in trailers.
Even if you had it, the only thing I would really ask is our insurance people.
Right, but if it's on a
But it's not
property.
on our property.
But it's
on
still
their
collecting the borough's recycling, isn't it? Oh, no, it's Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts,
Boy
I'm sorry, so
It's the Boy Scouts in the church, I think
apologize,
we're
again,
out of it.
the DPW yard
Yeah,
is
that
out
has
of it.
nothing to do with
Yeah,
it.
that has nothing to do with us.
It's the First
Just-
Reformed Church, but
Oh,
I bring it to everybody because they're looking for a solution. They don't want to lose the revenue from
I
the
can
paper
understand,
collection,
yeah,
so.
sure.
Briefly state the ordinance and.
Yeah, right, but I don't
Okay,
think this
so
is an
we'll-
ordinance that would prevent it.
Okay, so I didn't think there would be an objection, so we'll inform of that, okay? Thanks, Mark.
Sure.
Moving on to recreation. James.
Perfect. Not much going on in recreation, all the sports are started. Field 2 over at Bootnap Field is now done, 100% completed. Melanie went there today and checked it. The gates are up and the field is completed, so looks great. The only thing we're working on is just trying to get the grass grown with no water is a problem, but the fields are actually in all good shape. I walked there, I walked KRP the other day. Everything's looking great. We put a...
Sorry, did this come back?
Yeah, where they did that, yeah. Well, it hasn't yet, but it will. It's covered with hay and we checked it out. John checked it out. He said he did a great job just patching it up. But where it's a little bit messy, when they moved the pole, which is gone now, one of the tractors had some on the edge, not realizing how wet it is down there. So he just put some dirt down and seeded it and hayed it. So Johnson did a good job, and it's not on the playing field, although it looks the same as the playing field. So, but the game field is actually in great shape. Looks good. Just the practice field's a mess as usual. So, but it'll get there. Melanie met with. I don't know, were you there? Were you at that meeting?
With
The fields? Yeah, with Land. Maybe you want to talk about that? And
Yeah,
I
sure.
wasn't there, so.
Yeah, there was a company that we found, Land Tech, I think they're out of Staten Island or Long Island, and they sent one of their initial experts out. We walked all the fields, including the school fields, with Melanie and I, and we looked at drainage back here, and I was pleasantly surprised to hear that he said, relatively speaking, our fields are in excellent condition. He said, you should see some of the towns that, he says, that don't do anything. Particularly our school fields were in really, really good condition. The main field back here, he talked about the crowning was right, and probably had a lot to do with the fact, other than we don't play on it as much, that it was in great condition because the drainage was right on it, and thought that on the practice field, that if we would have put a better crown on it, because of we have that drain that's in where the valley is, that we could probably take better advantage of that. They thought that there's a lot they could do with this if we were to scrape off the top 4 or 5 inches and then redo it with some of their guidance and specific soils and whatnot, which was pretty exciting to hear that we can make that work better and stand up to the use. We went from there across the street. We were looking at the practice field by the high school. Melanie observed, she'd never really been over there, that the way the fields are laid out now, they're really only using 1.5, and thought that maybe she could, if she was designing it, could get 2, maybe 3 fields out of it, and this fellow agreed. So we had Alan Brissett who picked us up over there. We were talking with him, and they got a lot of kudos, especially based on the fact that they have to be out there early, 5, 6 a.m. to get the place mowed and or striped and or cared for before the students start showing up for gym. But he had the same thought. He said that of course he doesn't really have control over how it's used. That's Scott Rosenberg, but he would be happy to help coordinate a little bit better, and this shared field use, people that we keep talking about. He's limited for his resources as well, and was really open to that. Then we went over behind PRM. Big kudos for our soccer field over there, which I think we keep exclusively for varsity soccer. So, of course, that was looking terrific. He looked at our infields and the baseball fields; they look great.
Which are only used for varsity baseball.
Which are only used for varsity baseball, exactly. Well, except for the back right. He did ask, do we rototill them regularly? I guess you got to turn the clay up on those a bit. I think the back right could have used it, was admitted by Alan, and then, but other than that, those fields look great, and I think Melanie was talking about, is there ways to use that more? So it really, the walk gave us some opportunities to discuss better ways to use the fields, time-wise and otherwise than that. Then we went around over to Bootnap Field, KRP, and just to quickly summarize those, they all look great. KRP, you know, they were saying it needs some dethatching. It's stuff that we may or may not have the time under existing conditions. But once we have an expert, you know, that could have been over there, he says you dethatch it now so that you can let the new grass grow. They could have used water, so he gives me some examples where, you know, if we time coring or aeration and seeding with maybe having the fire department come and hose it down, we might have a better chance of some of this stuff taking. So the bottom line is they're coming back with an agrarian this coming Tuesday. Melanie's going to be here. I'm going to walk it again. I think Melanie invited the mayor as well to see what's going on. I don't know what an agrarian is, but apparently it's more specific. And
Come from the word agricola, from the Latin, means farmer.
oh, good. Thank you very much. Thank you for that lesson.
Wow. I'm an
So
aquarian.
they are going to basically give us, he said it right up front, they're going to give us the Rolls-Royce version of what they can do and what we can do. He said they've learned from experience that usually the governing bodies want to, you know, put the money out there and be done with it. They don't want to come back to the table once a year. So we'll be able to cherry pick, you know, deal with what we want. They can come in and do the work for us initially, get us started, especially if we're still kind of, and that'll be, I guess, under your report and my report as far as what we're going to do with the maintenance, field maintenance person that we've been talking about. But they can do the manual labor for us, get the work going, and then hand it off to us with a manual. This is what you do regularly, monthly, weekly, daily, and then they can come back and help us, check us. They do training, so we can send our people to them for training, and then there's also the Sports Field Association. It was an acronym that they would go see. I think every 6 months you go to these meetings and you get continually certified. So it was a lot of great information. Melanie had checked with her husband, who you know was in the business, and ran some of the names of this that own this company and run this company, and thumbs up from everybody. She was really excited to hear what these people had to say. So, yeah, it was a real positive thing.
Well, I mean, one of the problems we find until we get this person is that a lot of the stuff, the recommendations we make and say it should be done are not getting done. You know, the fields, I mean, how long we've been after them to flip the infields, rototill them to get the clay, because there's sand and clay, and a mixture of them gives you the hardness, you have the softness. You know, and ours right now is like a sandbox, and I think.
Yeah, there was one of
we've
them
been
over
asking-
at Bonnet Field that, you know, I think John was asking for more clay, and Melanie had known, her husband had said, and Land Tech agreed that it hadn't been rototilled, you know, admittedly in 2 to 3 years, and they said, that's all you need. You
And we
don't
have
need
that
stuff,
machine.
You just gotta maintain it, right?
It's
you
just
gotta
not
do it.
getting done.
Does this look like if these guys want to come in and do this on a contractual basis, it would be some for the school and some for us, or how
We can,
do
they'll do whatever we want.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
But what do we
exactly.
want? We want to
I
work
think
with the
what we
school on
ultimately
this?
want is to have somebody that we can count on to, instead of aerating our fields when we have time, we want to have a schedule that we can know that somebody's going to be out there doing
Yeah,
it weekly.
and it has to
Right?
be done.
Am I on the same page?
Right, well, my question is this a joint project with the schools? Because they're
Just
looking
for
at our fields.
information, joint project.
At this point, it's
We're not
information.
paying for it, or they're
Oh,
not paying for us.
we're not paying for any of it? This isn't, they're not trying to sell us a contract to do this?
Not
Yeah.
everything, I mean, individual contracts for each field.
Right, it's all going to be laid out, so
Okay, all
exactly.
right, no, that's fine.
we
It
can cherry
sounded like
pick.
they were kind of wanting to give us a contract for the whole town, and
No,
that would
the
be
way,
part of
the
the
way we
school.
approached it was, you know, holistically, that, you know, our kids are playing, whether it's this field or that field, you know, it's always been across the street.
Mhm.
One way or the other, it's our kids playing on the fields.
Right.
And so since these people were coming in, Melanie had decided, and we asked if Alan and Diane were interested in having their fields walked as well. And Melanie indicates to me, and maybe you can speak to it, is that she works really well with Scott Rosenberg. And they've been sharing gyms a little bit more, they've been sharing fields a little bit more.
Good.
He's calling us, like apparently they just did a school softball game over at KRP.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if we can continue to grow that, you know, the idea was, can we help Alan and his maintenance team out, you know, at the same time as we're taking care of ourselves, and kind of create a shared service that doesn't exist.
But the good news is that the quality of the fields is improving, even though we're faced with the same challenge of overuse.
Yeah, and you know, we've already approved the irrigation back here, and that was the first thing he said, is, do you water back here? He says that will give you a 50% improvement instantaneously as soon as you start that. So now we just got to make sure, that's why we've been on top of this guy to come back on Tuesday, because, I mean, that's...
And he was talking about a sand base as well, which is, you know, that gives you more wear and tear and on the fields. But I mean, our two worst fields in town right now are that practice field and the high school practice field. You know, and that's because they're the two most used. You know, all the other fields are used for just games, you know, so.
Yeah, but he had solutions, you know,
Yeah.
the idea was, you know, if they take that up and then they manufacture, you know, and put the proper drainage into the layers and put the proper seed down and then we properly aerate, that we won't be down
Does
for
he
a long
help you
time.
cost this out?
Does what?
Does he help you cost, he can cost this out too? So-
Yeah.
And reconfiguring the practice fields, I think, is a good idea, to have a few more
He
places
said he's
to
gonna give us the
rotate
Cadillac
between.
and then we, you know, can work our way down.
Work
to
it
the-
down our Chevy,
Yeah.
if we want to, or if we have to.
Shit.
How long would it take them to get that plan together?
We'll work down a Hyundai.
Can you give you an idea? Although I don't even know if they can implement it right away.
Well, that's one of the things, obviously, he's gonna need drainage down there, and we can't do drainage until that creek around there is done, which,
But he was
I walked with-
optimistic about it. He said, you know, we had indicated that, you know, we've been told we can hand clean that, which, you know, I think we're working on
We're
that,
gonna work on that,
getting
yeah.
some of the teams to do that. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
But, you know, on top of that, he says, we crown this thing properly, because right now you can see where the low spots were, and wherever the dead grass is generally where it pools. So he says, the dead grass causes pooling, pooling causes the dead grass, and you're kind of beat. So, you know, if we get the proper grade on there, that, and you irrigate, he says this can really be, you know, a gem.
I drove past the practice field last week, and the number of geese out there was amazing. I'm like, oh, come on. I said, you know, there's enough
I'll take my
challenges
dog
to
down
making this
anytime.
work. I know that Jim and I talked about, you know, the cardboard or the plywood dogs at some point in time, but I'm like, you know, it's not that the field is in bad enough shape, you gotta throw something else.
Well, you know what's
up
funny
there.
is that Alan said over at Stony Brook that they used to leave the cores when they did the aeration,
Right.
and the teachers and the kids would go, goose poop, and go running back, and he's like, no, it's cores, it's cores. So he says they have to pick them up now, or the kids don't go outside. So, it's
Is
pretty
that an
funny.
extra charge?
Yeah.
But they actually, the girls lacrosse was playing over there, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, and they actually, the referee called timeout because the wind blew and the dust by the goalies got crazy, and because of the dirt, that's where most of the dirt is, by the goal, and the girls couldn't see, or the goalie couldn't see, so they had to call timeout, so.
Yeah, good point on that too, is that at Stony Brook, and it's a technique that we could use on some of ours, they have a white field and a blue field, so they actually, you know, move the goal points and the face-off areas, you know, regularly.
That's good.
So, you know, he saw that over there and he didn't see it here, and he asked, do we do it? And Mel was just saying, well, we just got rid of this other, you know, pole and reconfigured, so I guess that's in our plans.
Yeah.
What else, Jim?
But the pole is gone, they moved it further out, so now you have a whole field. You can add another field going this way, so I think it'll help down there, but we just need to, I just think that we're missing the boat, like Adam said, with fertilizing and seeding, because we're not professionals, and we're relying on John Whitehead, who's not a professional, so that's where this comes into play, because I know last year at the end of, as soon as lacrosse ended, or football ended, he was supposed to seed and this and that, and
You miss the window and you're done.
and then, boom, he missed it,
Yeah.
because it snowed early, and then we were done, so now your field's right back to where it
Well,
was.
not to get off tack, since you're talking about fields, where are we with field maintainer?
I'll keep
Is
We-
there somebody interested in?
No, this hasn't even been posted yet.
Yeah, we were
But now we don't know
elaborating
whether
today.
that's because we haven't had, Donna left us, we don't know, and we agreed to it. And
Well,
we had a
Jim, you
meeting-
know it went to.
We had a meeting
them, right?
together,
Yeah.
okay, with our personnel committee and the union, the DPW union. They said it's on us, but apparently we're waiting, apparently John is waiting for the union to approve it. But the union said that, we said we approved it, but we don't know from the
I
union.
thought John had talked to McGill and said, okay, at $2,000, nobody would be interested.
Right.
Let's pump it up $1,000, and we're gonna have people that are gonna be interested. They're gonna
Right,
come
but then we
forward.
asked John today, and John said that he told Tom, and Tom just kind of didn't.
He said for a whole month, Tom's been ignoring. I'm like, how do you not check with the guy every day and you know, lasso him? And he didn't have an answer.
He didn't have an answer, so we don't, I honestly don't know where we're at with it.
Because it'd be nice to have
The
somebody
union,
take
of course, the
lead
union
that
lawyer
ultimately
didn't say
would
anything
deal with
about
the
it either when I
professionals
mentioned it.
on the field
Correct.
management, take that away from Melanie
Do
a
I
little
start
bit.
to study?
so-
Did I tell you I signed up for Rutgers?
You're not getting a stipend.
Can you follow up with Tom and just see if you can move that along, Dan? Thank you.
So, as far as the rest of the recreation, everything's running fine. Like I said, I'm feeling good about the baseball fields. The KRP's looking great. I think our focus should be on that practice field. And we talked a little bit last time. I mentioned to you guys that I had a gentleman that comes by my office all the time and tries to sell me insurance, and a very nice guy, and comes from a very reputable company. I buy through a franchise, so I can't use him. And we talked about, I talked to him about we were going into the state plan. He said, oh, his company deals with that kind of stuff. I just got the email today, so I didn't make a copy of it, but he says he can do exactly what Labasca's company was doing. The name of his company is the Hamilton Group. He says they have 50 years of experience with leading edge products and staff. Our goal is to achieve a long-term relationship with the employee benefits management team and insurance programs. We're committed to
How much is it?
represent. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. Right now, what he gave me was $13,000, but I think we're already into the year, so maybe we can even get it for less than that. But I have this here. He says they do. He will negotiate on our behalf with multiple collective bargaining units. He says I don't know if he does it for other towns. I didn't really get that far with him, but I could have him come in and meet with us.
Why don't we have him come to the next work session if everybody's in agreement? I know that the concern from the police is ultimately that we have this set aside and whether or not it's being managed pursuant to a
I
contract.
talked to John Schwartz about it just recently, the other day when we met. I talked to him after, and they're not big fans of Eric. And they said, though, if we're looking at another person, they're fine waiting. He said there's interest, so.
Okay, well, it's everybody's agreement, and if we can, maybe even see this another firm out there.
Yeah.
So, but, thanks, Jim.
When do you want him to come, or
We'll have
next
him
workshop?
Yeah, next workshop.
Or next council meeting? Not
Bring him to
Thursday.
work, bring him to the workshop next month, okay? Okay, thank you.
And that's the end of my report.
Do you want to speak briefly to, we talked about the commission meeting the other night? With the outreach to CLL?
Yeah, we're talking about just forming a committee on the rec commission to maybe put 3 members from the rec commission along with 3 members from CLL, or maybe even the library or something. We're trying to find out who's doing what programs, and we don't want to offend the library. I know at one point we did yoga. They were doing yoga, so we gave them yoga. So we're going to try to put together at least a committee of kind of like what we do, 3 members.
Because I know there's been some outreach from Ron in the
Yeah.
form of memos, and I think maybe Melanie got.
That's what Melanie said. She keeps getting the stuff
Yeah.
from Ron and doesn't really know what to do with it.
And then I know some people from the bus trip committee from the CLO group and friends have reached out to her, but there's like a disjointedness going on. So
And I think it's
a
just
committee
because
would be great.
no one knows who's supposed to be doing it. Melanie's
Yeah.
like, I love to do that stuff, so I can take it over from them, but she doesn't want to. She doesn't know if they make money from it or if they.
We actually do, because the friends actually do, because they've stopped doing their they've discontinued the Arts and Craft Festival.
Okay.
So this kind of generates
Okay.
the income that they're missing from that.
And with
But-
that being said, we'd love to advertise for them. We just want to make sure that
Cross-promotion.
programs happen,
Okay.
and we looked at other avenues to try to figure out how we get the emails from CLL. Because right now we're looking at pickleball, which is it's tennis on like a basketball court.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do it during the day, so it's for older people, not for kids. But we don't know how to reach that group, so we need to look into that as
Share
well.
resources, email addresses, email lists.
You said you had one more thing before.
Oh, Kinnelon. The usual funding is due, so with the cash matches, so I just
Did she fill out the application, because there was some miscommunication on whether or not the application was completed?
She reached me this week and she asked me for the resolution, and she asked me for number 1 page. I wrote her back, I don't know what you're
Okay.
talking about.
Well, I sent you the email she sent me.
That I got today, right when I came back
Okay.
in here at 6:30.
Yeah,
To put on the agenda for next
yeah.
week.
When's the application due, does she say?
It's due the 18th, but it's one of those ones, all you gotta do is say we're putting it through at a council meeting and they're fine on whatever date it is.
Okay. So, do you want to take action tonight, I guess that's fine.
No, I mean, no, you can do it,
You want it done on,
yeah.
others put it on,
Yeah.
have the mayor sign it?
Okay.
And, that's it.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Dan, Public Works.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we had a construction meeting yesterday, and we did a walkthrough, and we also had the animal shelter people present. They had given us a set of plans, but the plans, and we ran them by Dan Hagberg, we ran them by the health department. They were really inadequate because they lacked any electrical drawings and plumbing drawings as part of it. So we gave it over to Fox Architectural, and they asked them to give us a quote on it. As you realize, what we're trying to do is cut back on some of the addition there to try to compensate and let the animal shelter people improve their structure a little bit, which goes well for all the volunteers that do work there. As you know, somebody came to the council meeting and presented that to us at the last council meeting. So we are trying to work with them and see what can happen as a result of that. And they do attend all our construction meetings, which we have every second Wednesday. They've also suggested to us that they were going to rip out the concrete in half of the concrete in the existing facility, existing garage where we do park the vehicles. And I guess they came in and they said, the contractor said they have another product. If they added an inch thick, like an epoxy, they're getting us the numbers on it to the whole garage floor, because there aren't any cracks in the garage floor at all. But there is deterioration in the surface level of the concrete, about a half an inch to an inch deep, and that can cover that whole area. So they're trying to give us the numbers on that. But that was, if you recall, they were going to do epoxy on both floors, the new and the old, and that was part of the money that we were going to use to do the animal shelter. So at any rate, they're going to give us the numbers on doing the 1 inch thick, and it might be a better product without ripping it out.
So yeah, they wouldn't rip up the cement.
They wouldn't rip out the concrete. We would do a 1 inch thick epoxy layer that they said, and they gave us the literature on it, so they're going to see. And the architect was looking into it, researching it, make sure that the bonding agents are appropriate, that it's not going to get any peeling in it. So, and that's where we were with that. Also, the colors. We talked about the colors of being sandstone and the garage doors themselves being sandstone, and the bottom 2 feet doing the brown that matches like the trim here that we have in the building. And this way any splashes or anything else on the bottom. The contractor wanted to do brick, but I felt that would be an upcharge, so no, we're not going to do brick. We're going to stay with what we have in the drawings, which we approved, which was the stucco, but just 2 different colors. The brown on the bottom and the sandstone going up. And other than that, we had Dan Hagberg there today, and he did approve. We have the site plan approved today, that came in. Tom Barati approved the whole site plan. We expect to have all the permits completed by the 29th. They would not let us excavate completely until we had a separate Morris County, because we're going over 5,000 square feet excavation. But Dan approved today that we can do the excavation for the pinning, because we need to set concrete under the old building so that it stays for 7 to 14 days before you can mount steel on it. So let us excavate the end of the building to underpin the existing wall. So that worked out well. Okay, we're talking about our garbage contract. We'd like to get our garbage contract underway. And John had mentioned, you know, Suburban does use all natural gas vehicles. So if you notice, you know, years ago you used to hear the garbage trucks running down the street. You don't hear that anymore because they are using that natural gas. But I have something that we might want to add to the garbage contract. All trucks shall require to utilize clean technology and shall run on either natural gas or liquid propane or electrical hybrids. So just so that maybe we put that in our contract, and then if they have an extra truck that they want to run with the diesel, they're not doing it because it's 6 a.m., you know, and sometimes in the morning, which is our ordinance, it doesn't interfere. But Suburban is using all natural gas vehicles right now.
But does this become so restrictive that ultimately could change the pricing?
I think most of the big companies.
Yeah, Blue Diamond does it, Waste Management does it. We were
Yeah.
talking about that today.
I'll do two points, and then I'll do anything you want. Number one, that's not a standard language in the state garbage contracts.
Okay.
So.
I didn't say that it was, no.
No, I know you didn't. I'm saying I gotta think about what that deviation means and check on that. But yeah, you're gonna get less bidders. And that's up to you, you know, that's your call. I don't care either way, but you gotta make that decision.
Yeah, because we know we'd like to get it out sooner than later, because we've been up against it before.
John said that it
Up
affects,
till Christmas week,
where you
if you
can pick
recall.
up points for sustainable New Jersey. I don't know what that means.
If there's less bidders on the contract, and this is an expensive contract, I know we've been fortunate,
It's
I mean.
the expensive
You know, so I think you want to get as many competitive bids as possible. I don't think you want to make it too restrictive. It'd be great if they could do this, don't get me wrong. But
I'm awake already.
Something like that.
Is this from a set of garbage bids?
I believe so.
can you just give us some guidance, Mark? Take a
I'll
look
be
at
happy
it.
to take a look at it and try to come up with something.
Take a look at it,
Happy to help.
because, yeah, well, if we can get it out by next month, because I think it needs 56 days, 60 days of review of the contract, so we want to get it out, I would say in June.
Again, we've had
I
it for a
know.
couple months. We need those insert pages from the borough.
Okay,
Whatever
well, let's
the
target
dates.
June for getting it out, okay?
Yeah, good with me.
Good?
Good.
Yeah, I'll check that down.
Okay. As I mentioned before, we have the AC in the library room upstairs that we're gonna have to, but I guess we need authorization from the council to go and buy a $4,700 AC unit. For the,
What kind of-
for the-
We gotta see, maybe we have money in capital somewhere. I don't think there's this.
you know, or do we make the library pay for it, you know, out of the funds we give them?
Or I'm going to propose possibly looking at it like an emergency appropriation to get the computers and
I have a
phones
Fuji unit I could donate.
underway.
Yes, you do.
Maybe it can be included with
That'll
that.
work up there.
Did you make that?
If we can do
Lady?
that.
Well, I won't say that we just gave them an additional 26,000.
Does it work?
I won't say that, but
That's one of those ductless units.
I think that we pay for the building, if I'm not mistaken. They pay for maintenance. I may be wrong about that. But I don't know if we've ever had them do capital improvements. You have
I'm
to
not
get-
sure.
You have to get Jen to look at this, okay?
What am I supposed to ask her?
Ask her if in fact we've made capital expenditures on our books.
Because if
I
we
don't
take
think
it
so.
out, if we take it out of our buildings and grounds, we only have 18,000 in that, usually, you know, we need.
Right, but it may belong one building away, Dan, it may be part of their expense, not
They
ours,
have a room in their budget.
you know.
I'm sure they have a capital component to their budget.
I'll ask.
What I have would work.
And you have a what?
Window air?
Yeah,
Fuji ductless unit.
You know, we're trying to do a long-range improvement on the library in
How much you
here.
charge for that?
And we've only gotten the one bid in. You know,
No,
we had
sure.
asked us to go out, we had asked to go out to other bids, you know, for doing a long-range plan on keeping maintenance for the two structures with the failing doors and the windows and the structures and the air conditioning. And we've only gotten the one bid in from Fox, so,
Was that 26, Dan?
I think,
Was that 26?
yeah,
26.
I believe it was 26,000, correct?
I think it was less, actually. I thought it was higher when we talked earlier, but go back a page. If I'm reading this right, it was
Oh, that's correct,
architectural
yeah.
review,
I thought it was-
4,500, structural engineer hourly if required, mechanical engineer, 3,500, cost estimator, 2,200. So that's 8, 9, 10, 10-2.
10-2.
But you don't know how many hours on that engineer, right? Wasn't that hourly?
Well,
Was it, you
Yeah.
just said?
yeah, hourly on
Right.
structural if needed.
If required, so 45, so you got 8, you got 10,200 here in structural engineer. Dan, do you have any feeling that this kind of project would need a structural engineer?
No, I felt that we would not.
You would not, you have more knowledge than the rest
I
of
The
us.
only thing we
I
have,
mean, it's not- I don't
on the
believe there's
stairwell, we
any-
got that little crack.
We got some cracks here, we got some cracks, which are kind of normal at the end of, by the stairwell
The settlement,
structures
right?
here.
Well, what
Settlements.
if we go forward with this, it's 10-2 here, and maybe not to exceed $12,000 in case there is something where a structural engineer gives us a little room for a few hours if a structural engineer.
Because I know that you had
is-
wanted 3 bids. And
Well, if you can't get them, you gotta try, right? If you can't get them, you can't get them.
How did we advertise for bids on this, did we? I mean, we didn't advertise for bids, maybe that's the problem, it's not that,
Yeah.
you know,
I'll go back to John, says, hey, we gotta advertise.
Right, I'd rather get some multiple
Yeah, John
bids
said he
before
went
we
back
just-
to the people that bid on the
On the-
job
on
over
the-
there, and they said we didn't
He
get
went
that
back to the
signal.
architects that bid on our original job here,
Right.
and maybe because they didn't get the job, they didn't wanna bid this.
But I think it's incumbent upon us to get
John,
multiple
okay.
bids, rather than just have one thing on the table.
And that's-
Anybody else want to see it?
I think we all sort of.
Yeah, it was passed around, I just brought it back.
No, no,
I was curious as to
It was
how,
all email.
what John can do, where he can put that out for bids, you know, what media do you use? to-
Yeah, what,
Well, I would talk to Dorofowski too, I'd say, listen, a professional engineer, do you have any consultants that'll come in and do an assessment of the building? I mean, you know, Paul's gotta have some,
That's a good idea, Paul, maybe Paul has some
I'll have the
ideas.
resource.
okay, library. Okay, I told you, we're giving those plans to Fox, right, he's giving us a bid for the animal shelter. The Memorial Day Parade, which we had talked about, okay, gonna proceed, and we had asked the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts maybe to carry some of the Field of Freedom flags. So John was gonna get some of the caps, possibly some, they laid out, that they were going to lay out the field today to get some caps that could put over the rebar, and this way, because they're very reasonable, he said he would do that. And this way some of the kids can carry flags in the parade,
that'd be nice.
you know, which might be nice. Right now they're working on potholes and berms. That's about it. They're working on grass and mulching around the borough and starting a field cut on the roadways. As far as utilities, the grounding pump we talked about last month, you know, that handles all
that's not
our...
what you called it last time.
I don't want to say what I call it.
The grinder?
The grinder. Still not in yet, not for another month, so it's been backing up and the alarms keep going off, but we keep fixing
Can
it.
we manually ground it?
Well,
Yeah, we're gonna
we
put you in
were
there with
working
an
in the
egg
deli.
beater.
We wouldn't send you there before.
Cuisinart way.
Facing Lake Water, and the leak was detected this afternoon on Reality Drive, thank you, gentlemen. Your septic was leaking? No.
Took them too long to find the one on Ridge
They
Trail.
found a few leaks. They brought in a company, there was a few leaks that were discovered, because their water had dropped, and we were worried about them having to use the interconnect, which they hadn't used in 2 years. Apparently Facing Lake Water went over to the interconnect valve and thought it apparently was on, and they didn't think so, and they turned the valve the wrong way and broke the stem, so they have to replace our valve. So they're working on that too.
Tim, regarding Facing Lake Water Company, hydrants,
This is my next issue.
Okay.
Requesting faith, because Adam had brought that up because of, naturally, the fire company, you know, we don't know about their pressure or anything else, so maybe if we can draft some kind of letter, okay, Mark, maybe even comes from you, to Facing Lake Water Company, that we'd like an analysis on their pressure and their maintenance status of their fire hydrant system. Because we do pay, I think it's 75 or is it 85?
$85 per hydrant per quarter,
It's 8,500, right?
$8,500
$8,500,
I know.
per quarter.
you know, so,
30-something
And
feet a year.
specifically, Dan, what is the?
which is a
I
lot of
hit that
money.
number, didn't I? Answer 30.
What's the request?
You're right.
Request for pressure and a hydrant analysis
Well,
and
working
maintenance.
status or
They're
maintenance
supposed to, they're
status?
supposed
Yeah,
to,
John said if we
they're
were to
supposed
ask,
to have an inspection on every
system.
hydrant every 6 months.
a couple of years
Yeah.
ago, we went through this, Mark, where the hydrants, in fact, were not
Knew that was coming.
operable, and we're paying a maintenance fee for.
they call it a standby fee, so that it's ready to go when we need it.
Right.
But,
Okay.
you know, the bonnets get filled with vegetable oil, they take the covers off and grease them, and we have covers that don't come off, we have hydrants you can't open, some that don't have any flow.
But some of that's due, there's a 2-inch line in the street, you're not gonna get any flow out of that hydrant, but they were required to put a hydrant there, so I can understand, but yet we're stuck to buying it, but we don't, and we had discussed this for many years, this has been an issue.
I'll send a letter.
But I mean, it has gotten much better than it used to be.
Okay.
But then again, the borough doesn't want them to go bankrupt either,
We
because,
said it got better, but they've never changed anything, so I don't know how it got better.
Well, they have changed things. They've added more pressure to their system by adding their wells. So they haven't used our interconnect for at least 2 years. So their system they have done some of the infrastructure pipe on Basin Lake Road. So therefore, the system, they haven't had as many breaks as they've had. They just had to bring that company in for those recent breaks.
Do we know if there's a company that does that?
They're responsible.
They're,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, our guys go around, John has a person that goes around and checks them
Mike.
and does, flushes them, stuff that does not happen over there. And he says if we were to ask for maintenance records here, he'll pull out a book that has each fire hydrant, exactly where the cutoff valve is for it, when it was last touched,
right.
and they should have the same.
Because if you recall, a couple of years ago, we replaced some stems, and they weren't cheap, but I think John
John's
did
down
a...
to Pathmark, right?
But if you ask them for their maintenance records, that's why we'd like to see.
All right, well, I'll probably be in touch with you, Dan, just to get the terms of art that I'm supposed to use when I write the letter. And
Yeah, maybe
who's ever-
Bob Westdyke, I guess, right, fire official might be the right
Yeah.
guy too.
Who's the fellow I worked with on the truck?
Kevin Lowry.
Kevin, is Kevin a guy you can talk to?
I don't think so, no.
All right, then I'll contact you guys and you'll get me in the right direction. Okay?
Yeah,
I
Bob
would
Westdyke.
probably start, talk to our fire official, Bob West.
Bob Westdyke.
Start with him.
He would give you more direction on that.
Sounds good.
He's around all the time. Okay, that, and I think, I want to talk about something in closed about our contract, so we don't have to go to mediation on our contract. Okay, so we'll talk about that in closed. As far as our garbage schedule for 2016, I have that also.
Good.
Okay.
We can't eliminate? No,
Huh?
Sorry, every year I say that.
I mean, we had a snafu this year on our garbage collection schedule. I don't know if you know or aware of it, right? The May 1st one?
Yeah.
Okay. You got a call on it too?
How much does that cost us to send that out? Dan?
It's a national holiday. I think they would take a Cinco de Mayo, it's true, but May 5th, no.
Put it on.
No, but it,
Anything else, Dan?
no. Yes, JIF. Everything is going well in JIF, and I talked to Adam today. They did have a volunteer fireman scheduled training session for the JIF for May 21st, and I'll notify the fire department, because Donna usually makes those notifications, and they didn't have enough people sign up, but I'll notify them about when they're going to reschedule it, but JIF is rescheduling that, and they seem to think that it's a very good session for the firemen to take, and it's in the evenings. It was scheduled for May 21st, but they canceled, so I'll let you know when they're.
Yeah, I never heard about it, so maybe they didn't publicize it well.
Yeah, they didn't publicize it, I'm sure. But we do, they've up to $5 million in surplus which is excellent for our JIF. So that increased from what they had before last year, so they're doing well. The JIF is very functional and is doing well. Okay.
Frank had talked about providing some additional training to the council.
Yes.
I don't know where we stand with that. If he's going to come before this meeting early, so
Yes.
so he had talked about coming back, so I don't know.
We had talked about him doing it prior to a meeting, you know,
Yeah.
and
If you hear anything?
I emailed him and never heard anything.
So
Because
may-
you had said 6:30, remember?
yeah, I had suggested that
And
we do
so
it at
the
6:30, because we had done it that way before.
Right,
So I
right.
suggested, why don't we do it before a meeting, have everybody come in at 6:30. This way, it's not in a published meeting, and we do a training session half hour before.
Why don't we do this? Why don't, if you can reach out to him and
I will.
follow up with him and
Next
ask
week?
him for next.
Next week at
Or-
7:30,
I don't know if there's-
7:15?
You want to do it next week at 7:30?
I don't want to do
My-
it.
My preference is to do it at
particular
the work
time.
session. Let's see if it's not in a big hurry with them, do it June work session, 6:30. Okay? Thanks, Dan. I have a question for you, Councilman. I'm a little confused, but maybe you can shed some light on this.
Guilty.
Did we give Schwartz a demotion?
Why, he put himself as Lieutenant Schwartz? I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
see it.
Lieutenant Schwartz, so what are we paying him at the chief's salary for? If he in fact is
I didn't catch that. I read these and I did not catch
submitting
that.
Lieutenant John Schwartz, and I'm like,
It must be an automatic.
Can we make that-
We joined,
Is that retroactive?
we
Which
finally
one's
had
that?
some shared services.
is that what it is?
Yeah, we got another chief from another town.
That's
Not,
funny.
not that I would give him a hard time about it, but, you know.
Yeah, the top one was
The
cheap.
top one is chief, and then it's Lieutenant John Schwartz, and I'm like.
I'm gonna take a picture of that and send that to you.
You won't
So,
notice.
let him know that we read what he gives us, okay? So with that,
He'll say it was a test.
I read it, I didn't see it.
He'll say it was a test. You guys, you made it. You got it.
You're right.
so you're confused too. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Dan. Adam, public safety?
Excellent. Well, as you can see, I got a lot of excess here. You guys covered a lot of ground. I appreciate that. Mark provided us last time with this article, which I had inquired about with the APO and VRPO. And you know, what our remedies are for foreclosures and whatnot. I was talking with Gail briefly today, just trying to collect some data, and she says she didn't have the numbers in front of her because she was already gone, but she thought our foreclosure numbers were closer to 39. I know we keep talking about 9 or 10.
Yeah, I was told 8.
So I think maybe it's because of some stuff that's in different stages of foreclosure, pre-foreclosure and whatnot. So I'm going to try to get us some accurate data on that. But in the meantime, she said that there's no official process right now. They do get the letters when stuff goes for foreclosure, and she pretty much throws it in a file. And Dan Hagberg, I think, gets a copy, but not much really happens. And I thought maybe, I don't know where that falls to, we could kind of codify it or create a process where we have a real database, and whether the police know to check it periodically, and or the construction official, the zoning official, the fire prevention official, you know, could look at these properties and just make sure that they're being kept up, that they're safe and whatnot. At the same time as because we're going to be spending money and time on that, you know, put some of the stuff that was, I don't know if it was in this article or the other one I looked at, that, you know, $500 seems to be the number that's bantered about as part of the ordinance, that the banks would need to advise us, you know, of the facts of who the contact is in state. So if it's an out-of-state bank, they have to have an in-state contact, a $500 fee, and then they're responsible to maintain it. So now we know who to contact. We have somebody looking at the property. There's one right on the way inside Smoke Rise on the left side, second house in. That driveway has trees falling across it from storms. If something happened there, there's no way we'd get to it properly to protect, you know, house and you know, from there and whatnot. So anyway, between that and the CCO stuff that we've been talking about, there was this quick story on the CCO today. While I was talking to Gail, same thing. Somebody came in today, they were buying a house, and were doing their own research, their own due diligence, had been to the health department, building department, and whatnot, and they pulled the house record on it, and the house card says 1.5 bathrooms, unfinished basement, all this. And the guy's like, "Are you sure we're talking about the same house?" It had 3 bathrooms, finished basement, sunroom on the back, a 3-season sunroom with a deck. None of this stuff was on the card. And you know, the guy was going to be talking to the homeowner to say, "Listen, either you get your stuff up to date, or you know, we're done." But so between the VRPO, APO, the CCO stuff, and I thought it's kind of timely too, because if people are going to be coming up to date on their taxes, because obviously this house has been, I think she said since 2005 nothing's changed, and this guy said it's been, the improvements were made quite a while ago. So if people are coming up to date on their taxes, it's really timely to get the CCO in place, because then we can maintain the tax rolls properly from there on out. So, you know, again, I don't know what the proper procedure is, but I'm thinking maybe I throw it to ordinance to look at the VPR, you know, all these acronyms, CCOs and APRs. And what's that? So, you know, whatever you need from me, you know, but I think is that not the appropriate?
That is the appropriate committee.
Okay, so should I move on from that, or is there something to do first?
No, I just want to mention to Cliff that, you know, first, thanks for taking it on. But secondly, a realtor did approach me, and she said basically the same thing, that this is ridiculous, that we really don't have, you know, a policy in place or a procedure for COs that ultimately makes a standard where people feel comfortable, you know, because in fact the work may have been done, you know, outside of the permit process. So. But I know it's going to be an ongoing conversation, and you know, let's.
Okay.
Yeah, so you know, I'm there for whatever you need. I don't want to just throw you the ball and walk away from it. So.
That's okay. I'll be in touch.
I take that back. Let's see. We talked briefly about this today with Dan and John. I think after discussions, you know, we've been talking about what to do with the brush and vegetative waste and whatnot. I know you would run into kind of a brick wall there with John for a while as far as alternatives. On one hand, I'm hearing from John and from Karen, or maybe it was from Jen, that there really haven't been any complaints since we closed down on May 5th. So it's possible that there's no issue. On the other hand, you know, I called Jim Neal, who I know from, he's a Butler Fire Chief, and he had said that he was wondering why we never approached him on the maintenance shed, which I asked about. He put me in touch with the mayor of Jefferson, is that Russ Feldner, who then put me to another fellow, Dave
Helmer. from
Helmer,
Park
thank you very
Nation.
much again. And they're perfectly fine, shared services, we don't have to pay them a dime. So if we so choose, we can just have John Whitehead call Jim Neal, and all the executives are out of it, they don't care. They would want just a shared services agreement stating that we'll leave it in the same condition we find it. And then between us, we figure out gates and times and whatnot.
I called Jay Weber and asked him to look into the DEP issue as well.
Okay,
So he said.
as far as keeping it on the grounds.
Because John was telling us that we can't transfer the DEP because
Yeah.
certificate.
Well, John's concern with using Silas was that people are gonna drop stuff in front of the bars, you know, in front of the gate when it's not open, because the county wants us closed by
Clean
noon.
up the next day.
They want
Well, but I think the good
You know,
news is that the county is willing.
People have
The
been
county is,
saying-
the county is willing to work with us, okay? In fact, Dave Helmer said, listen, you know, he realizes that we have an immediate need, okay? And they would be willing to move forward with, you know, insurance, but the shared service agreement really is form over substance, and they would be
He
willing to.
said, go ahead and start
just,
doing
you
it,
know,
we'll deal with the paperwork later, and they were that accommodating.
As far as just dumping off the brush and the grass?
Yeah,
Now, how far of a trip is that for them?
it's, well, you know where the gate is, right on 100 Arthur Lewis Drive,
Yeah.
inside and to the left, 100 feet.
So you're not even going up the hill yet?
No, it's before you make even the bend, it's the straight in.
It's literally not even a quarter mile.
Not even
Yeah.
a quarter
I
mile.
know, John said it's been working very well, and he said they've been going to R&R, and people have had no problem. They said it's very easy for them to go in there and do what they have.
So, yeah, I don't wanna stir the pot, but on the other
So-
hand, if, you know, we're not even in prime season yet for
Oh, I know that.
grass clippings and whatnot,
And you got
So-
leaves coming up too.
and leaves. and-
Well, no, I think hopefully we have it open by leaves time. You know what I'm saying? We're looking at October to have it open.
Well, he was throwing me November before you walked up though.
We know. No, he was.
I don't know, Dan, I just, you know, I think that.
You know, at
I
least have a
think-
leaf section open by November.
Right.
We gotta get the contractor to update this, cause this says that we're
But
by
maybe
August
old.
17th. I'd rather to tease you.
Of what year?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
actually, because notice the shovel hasn't been put in the ground yet, but they did the demo, but the fence is up.
Right.
All right, I don't have an objection to it, no.
Did I
Yeah, so,
hear
You know,
a
if we can do it, the only thing is I don't want it to become a hassle and people start doing things that aren't right, they're
But we-
dumping garbage.
But we
and
can
this
shut
and
it down. In fact, if it doesn't, if they abuse it, you know, this is on a week-to-week assessment. You know, I think that's the way you
Yeah.
look at it. And if you do it and you don't need it, there's no harm, no foul, right?
Right, we just put a container there and we load it up.
Yeah, and Jim had it all picked out. John was saying he was a little nervous because there was old gas, like a concrete base where gas pumps used to be, and a propane tank over here. But Jim Neal said, no, you put the container here, you bring the tractor over, you have your people dump it here, and then you lift it, you know, once a day, once a week. So Jim had it all figured out. John was hesitant, he says, RER is working. But I just think once the season picks up and people start cutting lawns, I get a little nervous that we're gonna be playing catch-up, whereas now we can prepare, and like I said, the county's perfectly
Because
fine with it.
you know
We
what
can
it
work
is
till noon.
too, I mean, there are other alternatives. I mean, some municipalities pick it up on the curb. That
Yeah.
also has been offered at a price. But then again, you get an intermunicipal services agreement, because what about the rest of the borough for picking it up there?
Right, or then it becomes an expectation.
An expectation where people expect it all the time, and then, well, we gotta continue to service, you know what I'm saying? So I don't think we should go.
Right.
You know, so this seems like a relative simple alternative, which might work well. If we can utilize it, you know, you gotta check on the DEP regulations too, can we do this?
Jay Weber's looking into that.
And you're talking about as far as on our grounds though, but as far as the park service, he said that we can do it immediately.
Well, correct, but John Whitehead is saying, and again, I don't know if it's true, that we have a DEP permit to dump leaves and stuff at our facility. Is that transferable? That's what Jay Weber's looking into. As John's saying, you can't just dump leaves somewhere without a DEP permit.
Because of the Stormwater Act, what happens to the runoff and the drainage from?
Well, let's follow up with Bill and let Jay do this thing.
Okay.
But it'd be nice to have an alternative on the
And
table.
RER also takes the grass clippings, because I heard a rumor somewhere that they're not taking grass clippings.
Oh, they take it.
They do?
Mine went
Okay,
already
all right,
down-
then
mine
skip
went down
that.
there already.
Okay, good.
So DEP.
Just wanted to make sure.
Is
That's
it
why it was a
problem going
rumor,
down
not a
there, Karen?
fact.
They went in with the truck, dropped it off and left, no problem.
I mean, maybe what we do is just set it up as if we're gonna use it, and if we don't use it, so be it, because there's no expense to it, you know, and they said we can use it tomorrow if we want.
So we still have to
it's
pay
one
the
issue.
tipping, we still have to pay the tipping fee.
Yeah, true. Okay, yeah, as far as the revaluation meeting, unless I'm missing something, the only place I've seen it really is on Facebook where I keep posting it and on the marquee. So I don't, has that been advertised in Trends? I've been looking for it.
It was in Sundays
Are
and
they
it was on
hiding it?
Wednesday,
What was it in, that
in
little,
the legal ads.
yeah, see?
The legal ads
That's
aren't gonna
where
help us.
they put it.
Well, maybe get Debbie to do an article.
Debbie's away. That's why she's not here.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that they put it with the calendar of big items, you know? So I'll keep doing what I can on the social media, maybe we can talk to the library, use their database. I can try to use Textcaster, I'm just trying to think.
Why don't we just take an ad out in the Trends? It can't cost more than $100 or.
Yeah, I'm good with that, whatever you think, boss. I just know that, I've asked people, have you seen it, and no people, you know, nobody's noticing the sign. And, you know, I'd hate for us to all go through this, I'm gonna be there, I heard you say you're gonna be there, because I wanna learn about it.
It's too late
Well,
for
the-
Sunday.
Well, look at it this way.
Is it
That
before?
room,
It's right
that
after
room
Sunday.
can only accommodate 60 people comfortably, so
We could do
I
another
agree.
one.
They're gonna do multiple ones. They're gonna do one Face and Lakes, they're gonna do one Smoke Rise Club, so this is just the beginning of the.
So let this fly and see what
I
happens.
think
Yeah.
we'd let this go, and
Okay.
just, once again, if you can do Textcaster or whatever,
Try one shot of that or something? Okay.
Who's going to that meeting?
I'm going.
I'll be there. Don't you want to learn how your taxes are going to go up?
Mine are going down.
Mine are going down.
That's the councilman.
Deli's triple.
Deli, probably.
Delis are gold mines, so they get taxed twice, as a food place and a gold mine too.
Like I said, I was at the rec commission meeting after the poison
14 years.
poster. I don't know, was that in your report, the poison poster thing? That was great. Anyway, so I was at the rec commission meeting after, and I did talk with the commissioners about adding seniors or moms to it. And I think what we ended up coming up with was a really great idea, was 3 people that would work with that. So I'll follow up with everybody to just make sure we kind of come together and cross promote and whatnot, and get more kids involved.
Has your business dropped any since you started as a councilman?
No, it's gone up.
All right, I'm just
They
asking.
love it that I'm not around anymore.
Just curious.
Yes, I'm having a blast. Can you tell?
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
loving this shit.
The website shows it, man.
Oh my
It's
God,
awesome.
I'll get to that. Yes, I attended the 200 Club
All right,
Awards.
Gary, let's go.
200 Club Awards on April 30th. Patrolman Shortway, that was really exciting. Photos are on Facebook. I believe we're going to be doing the second reading of the underage drinking ordinance, otherwise stated, as you said, it's got another title, but we'll be doing that soon. The accreditation this month, and Chief Schwartz has some accommodations. He was reaching out to there's 2 citizen awards on there that are going to be pretty cool. One is the guy who followed, and made the phone call, and the other is a resident who heard somebody breaking in next door, and then not only called KPD, but went out and was yelling and got the guy away or tackled them.
Jason.
Yeah, chased him down.
Got a car, they hopped in a car and he got the license plate and they caught him.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. KBFC in Triborough, my usual call for members. What's kind of neat on the new website is that under the volunteer section, which under the old website was used pretty much for library trustee or open space or environmental, I've actually added Triborough and Kinnelon Fire, and we're going to add volunteers for coaches. So people really will they can use the website as a source for, if I want to volunteer in this town, what can I do? So if anybody has any ideas, keep throwing that at me.
Wait till you guys see this website. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, and you all have the address still, and I spent half a Saturday, most of Sunday. Kim says, "Are you going to join me? And do something?" I'm like, I'm just I'm having so much fun with it.
Everybody does that on Mother's Day.
Yeah, right?
So
Yeah.
business up, marriage down, all right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna go over real
You know,
well.
so I'm just,
See you year 2, year 3,
Yeah.
year 4.
well, after the commission meeting the other night, because I had said if you all take a look at, you look at recreation, and then it says links/things to do. And, you know, my wife she's involved with this big brother, big sister thing, and we're foster families, so, you know, it's just, I said, read me off the list of stuff that we've been doing with all these kids. So, you know, things to do now is, and it really, it broadens our rec department because we're the ones advertising it and suggesting it. You know, so I have, you know, the regular things, Silas Conduct and the different parks in the area. And then I you know, have some of the national parks like George Washington's House and the stuff in Morristown, Patriots Trail. And then I have the links to all the softball and baseball teams and whatnot, you know, the clubs in town. And then I did activities, so I had Mountain Creek, the biking path, the ski trails, the Crystal Springs sunset golfing. So once I had activities, then I did a section on activities for the mind, which is links to CLL and their program.
He's having his mind.
I really am. I really am. I just, one thing leads to the next, and I just keep growing this
But
thing.
it really looks awesome, Adam. You did a great job. Really did.
When do you think it'll be ready to?
I'm working for the end of May. That's why I'm just going crazy with this thing,
Because
because,
I use some stuff as well. So.
okay. Yeah, there's some, if you guys want to have individual stuff, you know, the mayor's got his page, you can have a little welcome letter. You know, I try to treat the site as if I'm moving in from California, and I came in and I want to know today, you know, where do I go to pay my tax bill? What is there to do with my kids? I got a 3-year-old, I got a 15-year-old, how do they join sports? And any of those questions I can think of coming in from out of town, I'm trying to answer within 2 clicks. That's my goal. And, you know, I keep showing it off. I was all excited showing Mel and Jim the other day. And, you know, anyway, I'm just, take a look at it and bounce around. I'm going to make Karen's office almost unneeded. Sorry about that, Karen. But you had, on the old site, there was all the things that the clerk's office does, and it tells you why to come in. Well, now they're all links to all the different passports and how to register to vote.
I don't
And
do passports.
well, you had a link on how to do it and come in and see what it
No,
was there.
take that off. We don't do passports.
Well, it's a link to the passport site now,
Okay.
so it tells you to go to the post office.
Yes.
But, you know, it was absentee ballots, it was for military
That'll be
absentee
3
ballots. You name it, it's there. I don't know if you all knew that the tax maps were available on the DMC or DCM website. So that's now, if you go to assessor, tax maps, and then assessor, county tax board. You know, so it's all stuff that we all kind of knew maybe in the periphery, but it's right up there, and it's awesome. All right, I'll stop on that. You'll have fun.
Very good, Gavin.
Thanks.
All right, great. So the volunteers, we've expanded the volunteer thing. That was my point on that. Kinnelon OEM, Ernie Palatucci completed some kind of mitigation documents that were required by the county in order to stay up with FEMA and continue to get money from them. And we should soon be looking for our $600,000 to come in from FEMA for the bridge, right? Which I think we already made capital, so.
He's moving his stuff in those drawers out there from Williams.
Okay, so we're taking that over here
Yeah, it's coming here
a bit at a time. So, yeah, all right, so Jen's going to be taking that over.
this week.
Okay, perfect. So we're gonna have to ask her to track her hours, because when we did the research, I think you had pointed that out. What was Harry's people really doing? I think we were overbilled. So we'll watch and see what the compensation really needs to be on that. I don't have a good feel honestly for it. I think that needs to be looked at. But I thought the 600,000 was an important note. Public safety, we talked about the CCO. You all remember I had a meeting in January with police, fire, EMS, school, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to set that up for June. I didn't want to have too many meetings and make them less effective, so I'm thinking biannually. I took a straw poll, and everybody said let's do it every 6 months, so that'll be in June. I think we were going to work with June 8th because that's when Chief Schwartz was available, so I was working around that. Real quick on infrastructure, when the phones went down here the other day, I got the call from Schwartz right away. The police phones are down. And just a month ago, I had to spend $1,000 to replace some kind of board in the phone system to keep it working. You know, once we approved that $75 grand for the computers and phones, I had sent Zaffer had sent Jen Stillman the instructions for buying the HPs from state bid, hit a brick wall, because, I guess we had to appropriate the money first. And I kind of thought that we had some money from last year, whatever. I think a bunch of us were caught off guard that, it wasn't yet appropriated. There's still problems with the phones. The computers, our email, you'll probably know, go down relatively daily. I check on that first thing in the morning a lot and call Zaffer, and they're already on it, or they haven't noticed it yet, but they were about to check. So if there's a mechanism to do an emergency appropriation so that I can get that ordered, especially if we end up putting the budget off even further than next Thursday, I really think we should get the computers working, because the phones can't move until the computers are done. Also of note, and I don't know, I think I was the only one that got the email from Jen, there was a bill that came through from Affiliated for $495 a month, starting in January through June, plus a $500 setup fee. And she asked me if I knew what it was, and apparently the agreement called for the T1 to be dropped at the beginning of January, and the billing starts as soon as they drop that, even though the phones, I really didn't catch wind that there was a problem until February, and get this all fixed. So anyway, $500 a month, January, February, March, April, May, and it will continue. Jen is going to argue the $500 setup fee because it's not in the contract. However, we're still paying $500 a month to them. We're paying $2,400 to the old company. So, money's kind of going down the toilet, if you will, because of that. So, it still comes back to the fact that if there's a mechanism to do it, I think we should try to create an emergency appropriation so I can get the computers going, to get the phones going, and get that fixed.
Okay, so you'll take action on that next week? Okay, so emergency appropriation.
Well, if the budget passes, then we don't need it. How's that?
Well, the only thing I had left from my earlier report was the fact that to do these changes, I believe we're gonna have to push the budget back at least 2 weeks. I don't think these are de minimis changes if we bring the tax rate down and bring that other money in.
We'll talk to Luke, because when I talked to him this morning, he thought that it was not, he thought it was de minimis, and you're talking about 5, 6 line items. He didn't seem to think.
It's the amount.
Right, but the overall,
We're
but
gonna-
get some
we're gonna-
guidance, I guess that's the bottom line. So get some guidance from
Yeah,
him.
I'm gonna, yeah, but I believe from what because I had a discussion with him too, and if we bring that money in and we're dropping $250,000 in appropriations, I think, that may be more than de minimis, but I'll find out tonight, tomorrow morning.
Okay, but if we don't pass the budget, we have to do an emergency
So I'll ask
appropriation
Lou
for the emergency appropriation.
what his feeling is on the best resolution to get that computer bought.
Okay. The website, I can skip that. Anybody needs the address, let me know. I just, in talking to different people about when we share documents and whatnot, and we run into problems where you can't open a PDF because it didn't come into your email with the borough email system, I just want to share this information that if we want to provide a government version of Microsoft Office to any council members or any of the committees, a minimum of 5 licenses need to be purchased for $285 each, but that would allow us to, each person that needs it, to put it on 5 computers and or tablets and or phones. And then if that person changes, it's very easy to reassign that license legally and simply. So
And this license is to do what again?
for Microsoft Office, for
Yeah.
Word, Excel, and whatnot. So
A different version of it? Is it a
the most
government
current version. Yeah, the government, it's the government version, which is the most current version, which gives you online storage, with that account.
For
So-
instance, my version of Outlook will not be supported
Exactly, like
when we upgrade.
when we all upgrade our email, you're gonna need the latest version of Outlook most likely. So, you may have it on your computer already, I'm just throwing it out there as.
I think it's $69 in your home, Microsoft Office, because I just bought it recently.
Okay, it could be a.
Well, you're
actually,
getting a, what, just like your basic
Basic,
home
basic
version?
phone, basic phone.
Yeah.
Well, this is Excel, Office, Word, Outlook, PowerPoint, yeah. So, I'm just throwing it out there, I don't need it personally,
By
but
my own.
I just thought, since you may need to upgrade your Outlook, I'd throw that information out there early. And the last bit of the news was the planning board is looking to be ready to present their master plan update in June. So that's all I have.
I just have one, I'm sorry, Jim. Carnival, fireworks. I'm not really sure where we are and which end is up, because I'm talking to Westdyke, he had certain concerns.
Yeah, that,
and so I don't know.
Brief you on what I know, which is very little.
Okay.
But yeah, Bob did reach out to me. He says, "Are you having a carnival this year? Can I get him some information on it?" And Kristen DeLeo, the quote-unquote mayor of Facebook, had just posted that. So it's the 27th, 28th, 29th, I think, or maybe off by a day. And it has the fireworks for the 29th. I messaged her. I said, you know, the fire official says that nobody's filed for not only a fireworks permit, but none of the food vendors have filed, which is a $45 fee for them. All their cooking equipment has to be looked at. And she went back and forth with this other fellow that is going to be away in Argentina for the 2 weeks, like from now all the way through the thing when it's finished. Had no idea that he had to do this. She says it was all institutional knowledge, and the wrong people had it. And I said, well, you know, you should really have a book or a sheet of paper that has the timing. And whatever, take that for what it's worth. But I put those people in touch with each other, and that was the last I knew, was that we've put the fire department on notice that there may be something for the 29th. That's what's being advertised. But the chief has nothing yet, and she would only get it from Bob Westdyke when he has the permits on file. Do you know if anything's been filed yet?
He gave him the permit for the fireworks, because I gave it to the man that came in that did this last year.
Exactly. Did this last
He knew
year.
what he was supposed to do.
Where are they setting fires?
I don't know, Bob, he has no clue where they're gonna go up yet, but he just gave him the permission to
Yeah, it
have
needs
fireworks.
250 feet of clearance all around it, and obviously, you know, we don't really have that over there. And then based on the shells. So, yeah, nobody knows where it's gonna go off yet, so, yeah, lack of communication.
And I have a hold harmless agreement signed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jim.
Have you, is there gonna be any problem with changing the website over from the existing one? As far as the...
No, I looked at the
domain
contract,
name
and,
and
yeah,
the
you know,
contract.
I've been putting that off, I really gotta reread that. But I had read the agreement back before we made the decision to move, and it's on a month-to-month, and we do own the domain name. So
Okay.
it may be a matter of tracking down the right people to make the changes to where it points to the DNS records.
And is that something we could just remove from their website and just throw it on ours? Is that simple, or?
Yeah, it happens in a matter of a minute, a second even, once it gets redirected, but yeah, that's not my to-do.
Because I don't think we've ever reached out to CityNet to say, hey, we're changing or leaving.
Well, he knew, right, because he texted me.
I talked to him, but I don't know if the town,
Yeah, I haven't made any
Has ever
moves to
said
let them know.
or do we need to?
Well, it was a 30-day out on the contract, so, and I have that at home.
So we're just gonna do it at the end of May and then bite the bullet from them?
Yeah, because with launching a website, you never know. I mean, if something goes wrong the day of launch, and all of a sudden we realize that I missed something huge.
Yeah.
Call Obama's guy, theirs went off well.
Yeah, exactly, right? You know, you could flip the switch back. So I think it's, you know, we're blowing $5 a month on phones, we'll blow a little bit on this. So, anything else? So, sorry to keep you all a little.
I'll speed read.
When you're called Gary, that's not a compliment, by the way.
That's not even
Just so we're clear about that, it's a commentary type thing.
If you build up to Eric, then you know there's trouble.
Oh, yeah.
The only other thing is I will reach out to Lou May. We were both talking about, I'll reach out to Lou May and make those changes to bring it to 0 and let everybody know what the impact is going forward on that windfall money, and I'll also find out if we have to delay it 2 weeks. I'll interface with, I guess, Mark if we need a resolution or change what we can. Okay?
Whatever
Yeah.
we need to
Okay.
make it work, we'll get it out to you.
All right, I'm done.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Make up for you.
Yes, exactly.
I'm up? Okay.
Open space, I just want to remind or mention, if you have had the opportunity to look at the Smithsonian Aerial America, New Jersey finally had a preview on the state, and the state actually looks pretty good from 3,000 feet up. But no, they really did a nice job basically showcasing the state, and I actually was hoping that they would do a flyby over Kinnelon, but the closest they got was Oakland. So, you know, but, open space.
Okay. Well, coordinating committee first. Board of Adjustment, I did speak with Gene Orcutt. He is coming back on Friday, tomorrow. He is coming back for about a week, week and a half. He's probably going to end up moving down to Florida. Doesn't know exactly when, doesn't know exactly where, but he's coming back for about a week and a half or so, check on his house, and then settle things there, and then come back. So I guess the proclamation is in the works for him or
Not
something?
this month, no.
Not this one.
No, I'm saying in the works for him eventually, okay. I'm gonna skip down to Board of Health, had their annual poison prevention awareness poster contest at their May meeting last night. Students from Kiel School and their parents were present to accept accolades from Mayor Collins and Stony Brook and Kiel School principals. Library Board of Trustees, Friends of the Library are having their Barn Theater fundraiser on Thursday, June 21st. Tickets $30 per person. Great refreshments, tickets now available at the circulation desk. Their summer reading program is kicking off this year on Monday, June 22nd. They also have museum passes available that can be checked out with just your library card. The museum's passes are for the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum, Grounds for Sculpture Museum, the Montclair Art Museum, Guggenheim Museum, and the Museum of Natural History.
I don't have a museum section yet on the web.
The library is also creating a maker space, which is a place for technological interaction and creation. They're purchasing circuitry kits, buying a button-making machine, and a 3D printer to start. They're also welcoming Gregory Gallett as their new technologist, which is responsible for tech education at the library. And their Earth Day fair was a resounding success, and the trustees thank Galina Adair and the entire children's department and Kinnelon Conserves for an outstanding job. Historical Commission. I think a few months ago I mentioned to you that they were looking into, the Smoke Rise Club wanted to replicate their medallion, and we went through some of this, okay? Tom drafted a simple agreement for the Smoke Rise Club, which they gave to their attorney, and they complicated it a little bit. And Tom's comfortable with it, but just before he signs it, he wanted to know if the borough attorney could just look it over.
Just email it over, I'll be happy to look.
And he's going to email that to me tomorrow.
I'll look at it.
And then I'll also include the mayor and council so that everybody else can enjoy reading that document as well. They're looking for donations for their from the public for their annual garage sale on Saturday, June 6th. And their Pathways of History tour is October 10th and 11th. The Environmental Commission met and are waiting for an updated draft of the tree ordinance so they can review and make comments on that. The Open Space Committee did not have a meeting this month. And best for last, the Board of Education. Both coordinating committees, Dan, Jim, and I, and the Board of Ed's coordinating committee met on April 27th. Jim presented alternative infill products. Zeofill was one, which was an acrylic covered sand, and Nike Ground, which was ground up virgin rubber sneakers. Both products would add an additional cost of about $100,000 to $200,000 to the total cost of the project. And they also asked if the borough had registered with Keystone Cooperative, and I see that that's on our consent agenda. They also wanted to know what the status of the lease agreement was, and as well as how the borough had planned to fund this. And they're still awaiting the results of the New Jersey DEP and Highlands applications that were submitted. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you,
Almost as short as Steve's.
Thank you, Carol. Moving on to personnel and ordinance. Cliff.
Thank you, Mayor. Personnel is short and sweet. We met with the union for the borough personnel last month, made them the proposal that we had discussed, and we're waiting for them to get back to us about pay grades and scales and all of that. They were supposed to get back to us with their own version of a pay scale, but we haven't heard from them yet, so I have Brian following up with them, our Labor Council. Carol mentioned before the tree ordinance. I'd mentioned at last month's meeting that the ordinance committee had met with a couple of people about the tree ordinance, and Cheryl Kinnelon took it back to the Environmental Commission, sent it out to several of their members, and she emailed me all of their questions, suggestions, recommendations, concerns, all of that. I am in the process of going through, because she sent me several separate emails, of listing all of the questions and problems that they had, and I'm going to send back one email with a revised version of the tree ordinance, hopefully before next week's meeting. I should have that done. They had some good questions, some not so good questions, some didn't quite understand a portion of the ordinance, so I'll have to explain that. But overall, some helpful information that they provide. Sign ordinance is still with the planning board. Tamara Rosales said it's gone to the whole board for review. I have not heard back from her, so hopefully we'll get that soon. Regarding signs, I had included in this month's notebook. Phyllis Boudreau had sent me, you may remember she's come to a couple of public meetings with concerns about the new signs that we've seen in town. She sent me several articles about how electronic signs like that, which are now the new way of advertising on roadways, has been causing distractions depending on the report you read. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. She sent me several articles. I read them all. They all pretty much say the same thing. They all really talk about electronic billboards on highways. They really don't address specifically her concern, which is our small, town and school signs that we have, marquees. So I've included one of the articles in this month's materials. If you're interested, read through it, see what you think. I know, Adam, you've been working on the signs, trying to get, fine tune them. I think that's really all we can do at this point. I think these articles really don't address any concerns that I think would apply to our signs. Again, they're talking about highway billboard signs and flashing.
That's the feedback I got from our traffic officer and our chief, is that those are the ones that are sometimes an issue,
Sure.
brighter, or the speed at which they change, but they said there's no evidence that our kind of signs here are an issue for safety. But it's also being taken under advisement, I think, in our sign ordinance, that they're going to restrict those.
Right.
Rather than
Yeah, they're
schools
trying to
and
limit
car.
it as much as I can, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I agree. Personal experience, it's a sign. Yeah, I think you'd be just as distracted by that as you would the old signs that we had when there was a message on it, and you'd slow down to read that, so. But again, if you want, read the article that's in there. If you have any thoughts, let me know. Let's see, the rec code, the code of conduct is still on the agenda. It's up for a second reading this month. Karen, have you heard anything from anybody about that code? I haven't either. I don't know if anybody else has, about the code of conduct for the rec committee. I don't know.
We don't really have any problems in Kinnelon, so.
No, nobody argues, right? And that is it, Mayor. Thank you.
I don't know if you saw the article that Debbie had done on the code of conduct. She dedicated a pretty decent sized article
Yeah.
to it. So.
Yeah, it was a good article.
Okay. If that's it for committee reports, we'll now open it to the public. Anyone from the public wish to be heard this evening, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Public
You
is
can thank me for that.
quiet. We will close the meeting for the public. For next week, we have the payment of the bills. The bills list is included. If you have comments or questions, please reach out to Jen before the meeting so we can resolve them prior to taking action. Under the consent agenda, we can take action on resolution 1.1515, which is the award of a non-fair and open contract for professional services under $17,500, Darmafowski Engineering, site plan for Kinnelon Department of Public Works. This is required. I think Dan and I had a conversation about it. Ultimately, the contractor will not or does not do site drainage work, and so this was kind of an item that just we kind of missed in the original.
The original
game plan.
site plan that Dalmafowski was not adequately accepted by the state, so the state is requiring a further drainage plan, so we have to add this.
And it is below the threshold of 17.5. Once again,
Be professional services anyway.
it's professional.
These professional services, so
7,500.
I think he's want 7,500 for the job.
So 7,500, I think.
We thought that his original site plan was adequate, but his original site plan didn't include the drainage to the facility, so he has to add that aspect to it. Fox does not do that aspect of the job, so we went back to Dalmafowski.
Still, that's a lot of hours, a lot of work for 7,500, right? Must be pretty intense. Sorry. I'm sure it's all broken down on this bill like you asked him to do.
You know, we have
Oh, I
women
had
in the
that-
room, because I was going to ask you a question you asked Palucci a couple of years ago.
Jim, I had that meeting with him, and his bill should be better now. Let's
Can
take
we
a look
see
at
one of
some.
his bills? Do we have them?
I'm gonna, now that you mentioned it.
Just to make sure that.
Not to interrupt.
I'm sorry.
So we need to take action on the $7,500
Just trying to stay warm.
proposed services for drainage for DPW yard. It does have professional engineer at $120 an hour, engineering inspector at 70, and CAD design drafting services at 70. So questions, comments?
We finished it already.
You finished already?
So it should be less.
$7,000. Should do it too, I need the money.
Dan,
Little inspiration.
And I need a motion to approve
$4,000, done.
the award of the contract to Darmafowski.
I'll make that motion.
For $7,500. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Frida?
Yes.
Councilman O'Dowd?
Yes.
Councilman Barrage?
Yes.
Councilman Cavell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Spencer?
Yes.
And Councilman Giantonio?
Yes. Thank you. The second is action required on authorizing mayor to sign application for soil erosion and sediment control plan. And
That, I did a resolution for it, it's over there, it's a big map, it's required, it has to be done tonight, it has to be all reminded down here tomorrow. It's actually a soil disturbance, because we're moving dirt,
this
over
is for
5,000.
DPW.
Yeah, Dan Hackberg is requiring us to do a soil disturbance over 5,000 square feet. We're doing approximately 8,500 square feet soil disturbance, so we have to do an additional permit for the other 3,500 feet.
The rest of the consent agenda, with the exception of the bike club using our
We have to
municipal
approve,
building.
we need to approve the dirt.
I'm sorry, you're right. I need a motion to approve the dirt, and Jim
So
says. Here's a second.
Second.
All in favor?
It's free.
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, resolution carries. Rest of the consent agenda, I don't know if anyone has any comments. A lot of it is administrative in nature. We talked about joining the Keystone Purchasing Network and Quick and Ticket, and we will put on for next week the Camelot grant.
I reached out to our, whatever, the QPA. I reached out to the QPA to ask her about the Keystone 4 times, and she hasn't called me back in 4 times, so I assume it's okay then, because she didn't call me back for 4 times.
You better make sure the bill was paid.
Did you say four times, Jim?
Yes, and I think Karen also told me there's an issue with her responding to us, so we need to rethink that for next year.
Well,
She's not responsive
but
to
I know,
us.
but if we have to reach out to her because it's becoming a problematic situation, it's a professional shared arrangement. I think we have to put them on notice, or at least do a
I mean, do you agree, Karen? I mean,
I'll
I'll
speak
reach
to her
out to her.
directly, and I will say, listen, this is, apparently something that needs attention that we're not
Yeah.
getting. So we'll start there before we basically break up.
Thank you.
I know Steve has one other thing, but before I get to that, anything else on the consent agenda that anyone else has any questions or comments about? Okay. Steve, you?
I think last week, or last month's formal meeting, we decided to put off talking about approving Mr. May's bill for the work he did on the bond sale. I think we have to address that. The man did a great job. Could not have done it without him. I think we owe him the money.
I don't disagree, I just, this was presented, I think, at the last minute, so we didn't have a chance to really look at it, but, I
Last
don't know
month.
if the bill had enough detail, really, for hours put in. I don't remember looking at it other than, doing a cursory review. It just seemed that 15 was the number that was at kind of the bottom.
This is the
It
detail,
just-
right? It was the letter.
It listed what he was going to do, and that's the fee that he liked, just like Paul's bill.
Well,
There's no hours on that either.
right, but we told Paul we would address that, and I just want to be consistent. I can write down a lot of different scope things too, but as Dan said,
But this is what he did.
I understand, but how many hours did he put into doing it? And
He's not giving us an hourly fee. This is the fee for these services.
but he didn't get a proposal to do the bond sale either, and that's what there was a proposal of $15,000 to do the bond refi, was there? He never approached us and said, my
We
cost.
asked him to do it. We had no choice. We asked him to do it. We asked him. We're obligated to pay the guy.
Right, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if we wanted to contract with somebody,
Mhm.
we'd say, we're contracting you, what's the fee associated with that? And that never happened,
Yeah.
right? So now I get a bill for $15,000 that he did the work, okay? This could have been $5,000, $10,000, but 15 is the number he came up after the fact, correct?
Well, he did tell us beforehand, when we discussed the overall fees, what the fee for the attorney would be, and he said this was the number he mentioned that his fee would be
Well, that's
for
okay
going
too.
forward.
He mentioned that at what point, because I don't recall. I'm trying to see when
When
he said.
when I tried to get a handle on what the bond fees would cost, and I think I went at several meetings and I went over what they would be.
Right.
$70,000 to $80,000 to have a bond sale, and I mentioned that it would be $15,000 to $20,000 for the accountants, $50,000 to $60,000 for bond counsel, and that's why we only wanted to do it once.
Well, as long as it was previously disclosed, I don't remember us talking about it specifically, the accounting fee, that's what I'm trying to get into. So we'll put this on for approval. Questions, comments? Okay. For next week, okay?
And if anybody wants to call him about it, call him.
I'm in the wrong business.
Sell more sandwiches.
Yeah, I do, but I gotta fight for it. I just wanna write a letter and people give me money.
Just increase your
I wanna be
fees.
Darwin Fauski when I grow up.
You went to the wrong school.
I know.
You
Old
can't
bus-
spell
old
Donald
business. Old business, we're gonna undertake the adoption of the budget depending on what direction we get from Lou May, as far as whether or not we have de minimis corrections to the budget. We have the public hearing adoption on the authorizing a code of conduct for the Recreation Department. And finally, we have the change, removing the sunset provision from what we've been calling the alcoholic beverage code of the Borough of Kinnelon. And
That's what it is. We call it the underage drinking.
Right, but this is what it is.
This is what it really is.
We have payment of school tax, we have a couple resignations. We have Anissa Marinero, or clerk assistant, she is part-time. We have from, thanks, Jim. Yeah, she is.
Oh, sorry.
Ed Rossi from the library, and Nancy
McMurray.
McNear.
You gonna seek someone else for that position?
Well, that's what I need to ask, if you want me to re-advertise.
I gotta know a lot of
Yes.
this stuff.
Excuse me?
Show off.
Yes, I think we need someone.
Yes, I can advertise now.
Yeah.
Same.
At least I think so.
What, Anissa?
Yeah. You need someone there.
Oh, yeah. You tell us, Karen, you need.
Yes, I do, thank you.
I thought your comment about the clerk's office is gonna come back to the surface there, but.
Now that Adam
I said I automated it.
Yeah, I just-
Now that Adam eliminated
Talk
passports,
to him after the meeting.
do you really need someone?
He's got a lot of free time now.
Now that you don't have to do passports, come on.
Talk to him after the meeting.
What did you do?
It's all on the clerk's website. You don't have to stop in.
You could sleep late.
Been replaced by a computer.
We have a fire, fighter appointment next week as well. We now will be going into closed session to talk about,
We'll be going to a closed,
perhaps wishful thinking, but 15 minutes to 20 minutes to discuss a matter of
I
property
have nothing to
acquisition.
talk about.
Two litigations, which will just be a brief commentary, and the other property acquisition that remains pending of Total Construction.
And one,
And one which you have as a new one.
Right.
Yes, so there'll be two property acquisitions, two brief reports on the litigation.
great. Thank the public for coming out this evening, and thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Screw it? Is that what Jim just said? We're back in open. Anything else to come before the mayor and council this evening? If not, motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay.
I have one thing to say. I guarantee this is gonna be coming in front of the mayor and council meeting, Cliff, with that lady with the signs.
Yeah,
Have you been down Route 23, that dollar store, at night?
no.
They outlined all the windows in these white, bright
That's,
lights,
they have that in the sign ordinance.
like you're in Patterson.
Discussed.
Oh, really?
It's
On
awful.
LEDs?
Yes,
It's not the current
it's
one, it's
awful.
the one they're looking at.
I mean, that wasn't
Should I
approved
take
for them
those
to do,
in? Or you want me to
and I
wait till I have
guarantee,
all of them?
take it right down tonight.
No, that's,
Look at the dollar store.
Really bad?
and his.
Oh, really bad.
Really? All right.
Is the curb.
She's gonna say something.
This is what.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
16, 17.